Welcome back to the Four Horsemen that are actually three horsemen because we don't have a guest this week.
He's done it, the meme. He's done the meme.
Well, get used to it, guys, because we may not always have guests. And you may say, well, why wouldn't you guys always have guests? Well, sometimes we're going to have episodes where we don't necessarily have a guest that's going to fit in. And this one being about the state of LFN, as well as some other, potential shenanigans that, of course, esports companies are always up to.
What, Monty? The fourth horseman on this episode is all the other people in the industry who should have been on our side, but left us on our own, and we just had to do it our own way via LFN. So in some ways, it's philosophical, the fourth horseman on this episode.
That's true. And because, guys, as we talked about in Summoning Insight, but if you don't watch Summoning Insight, you would not know this. We're planning on doing the Four Horsemen more frequently, about every other week. And because I am taking a step back from active League of Legends analysis, and because we don't want to draw Yamato Cannon, the new SI co-host, necessarily into the minefield, we have to have a place to store all of our radioactive debris.
Yes, exactly.
And that is this show, because all of us don't care about what happens. Well, I mean, we care about what happens to us, but not necessarily at the cost of not talking about these things in the industry.
We're in for a penny, in for a pound. The difference is Yamato Cannon's only in for half a penny, so he can't be brought along on this ride.
Our livelihoods, let's just put it this way, our livelihoods are not dependent on the good graces of developers, which is not true of many of our esteemed co-hosts here on Last Free Nation. So if you guys are interested in some of the stuff that was happening over on Summoning Insight, it'll still all be happening here, guys, because it's not like I'm not paying attention to the esports industry or what's going on, or I'm not receiving tips or other information. What's happening is I just don't have time to get into the weeds of 40 hours of VOD watching of League of Legends a week, but we'll save that explanation as we do the state of LFN and how things are changing. But you guys should be happy for some more Four Horsemen. Of course, we still will have the episodes with guests. We've already lined up a guest for our next episode about the state of League of Legends, like we did with the state of Counter-Strike in our previous episode with Jason Lake. So we will be checking in on that. It is going to be, an executive at a major esports team, just like Jason Lake is the CEO of Complexity. So those episodes are still going to happen, but sometimes we may not have guests, or we may not have those episodes lined up, in which case we will do this. And I wanted to start, guys, with something that I found very funny from this past week, which is the viewbotting of the LEC channel. And LEC is the European League of Legends League. And don't you worry, because I came with receipts that will be appearing on your screen. Thorin and Richard already have the screenshots, so they can just look along while we talk about that. So something very strange has been afoot. And I'm not going to accuse LEC of viewbotting, because I can't know that. I can't know who viewbotted this channel. But it is funny that it is getting viewbotted, and it's especially funny the way in which it's getting viewbotted, because it's on some videos that don't make a lot of sense to be viewbotted. And primarily amongst these is a format explainer video for the year 2025. And what LEC did was they said, hey, we're changing the format. Here's a little video for the fans to explain how they can expect to watch our league in the year 2025. And so this video was released at the end of 2024. And after 1 month, this video, titled very scintillatingly LEC 2025 Format Explainer.
The greatest possible title imaginable. Like back in the day when I was such a boomer, I used to do interviews and call them Interview with Get Right. That was just the headline. Like, I can spoil it, but I make it as a joke on myself. That's a terrible marketing scheme. No one would ever click it, would they?
So with a thumbnail that says 2025 LEC Format Explainer.
Ooh, that's enticing.
With some
this is almost like an actual test case of credulity of whether you can ever believe this is real, guys. It's almost like they've tried to make it like, are we viewbotting? Like, it's outrageous, isn't it? I know.
It is a 5-minute long video, and behind the text on the thumbnail, it features some LEC colored squiggles. So basically what I'm saying is there is nothing compelling that would cause people to click on this video.
It doesn't even have one of the horses or something. It's like shocks. Check this out, you know. Yeah, the caps or something. No.
Doing a pog champ.
No,
you have to have a face doing a pog champ, or no one will click. That's the rule. FaZe patented that. They said that was secret tech.
So
in the Tfue lawsuit, true story.
A month after this video was released, you will notice it had 119,000 views.
Quite a lot of views. Yeah,
quite a few for a format explainer. So that's not plausible. Not bad. So what I'm going to show you guys next is a following screenshot that shows mysteriously that on, hold on, I have to get into my screen, January 15th, after receiving between 10 and 40,000 views for the previous 2 weeks, all of a sudden on January 15th, the LEC channel receives 933,000 views on YouTube in one day. Now, this was a day after they posted a video about Callista, which is the up-and-coming Carmine Corp AD carry that's been very hyped. Obviously, Carmine Corp's very popular, so you might say, whoa, didn't that Carmine Corp video get a lot of views? Well, when I took these screenshots, it was at about 400,000 views. So it did, and those were probably mostly real, I would guess.
I mean, they have a very active fan base, though, who's incentivized through like Discords and stuff to click stuff.
Exactly.
That's vaguely plausible. They do have that reach, yeah.
Callista has been the most hyped rookie in LEC for years. So it does make sense that would have a... But keep in mind that this has 400,000 views. Okay, so this Callista video. Yep. They also had a video about Jojo Pian, who's a famous North American player, joining a European team, Mad Lions Koi. Again, a big fan base.
Movistar now. They've renamed to Movistar.
Movistar Koi, yes. And so that video had about 375,000 views when I took these screenshots. So
these are insane numbers. Just those alone are mega numbers for a video. Yeah, that's very, very good. Yeah.
But what you're going to see now is a screenshot of the top videos ever released on the LEC channel. Ooh. And you will notice that the LEC format explainer is now in 5th place all time on the channel with 1.1 million views. So the hottest rookie in LEC in years coming to a team with a massive fan base did 400,000 views.
Monty, they have more views on, the same views on that as an LEC video featuring Law as the thumbnail, which was a fucking collab with Diplo, an actual like real electronic art. There's no way. Like that is the difference is no, there's no way, bro. There's no
including this format explainer was more popular than some of the songs that they made, including I Want the LEC Back, which many LEC fans will know.
Yeah.
Crown, Heartbreaker, some of their rap battles. So only 4 videos in the history of LEC were higher than the format explainer video. And what was the format explainer video doing? Well, remember, after 1 month, it had 119,000 views. After 2 months, it has 1.1 million views. And on the day, that is, by the way, 21 times the average views of a video on this channel. And when I took the screenshot a couple of days ago of this video, 2 months after it was released, at 2 months later, it was receiving 21,700 views per hour 2 months after the video was released.
Per hour? No way. I know. By the way, here's another ring, guys. It's so implausible to me that much. The key thing here is the date of publication, Monty. That wouldn't be in the algo anymore. Like, look, in the first few days, but the joke is our videos get in the algo either for League. There's no way that video on a dry explainer is like a month later suddenly gets picked up by the algo. That just doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for it. Yeah, that's nonsense.
Well, I mean, I'll add, if you look at it now, it's up to 1.7 million views.
Oh my god, I didn't even check today.
Okay.
Yeah. It's up to 1.7 million views.
Since Monty fucking put this in like 4 days ago.
2 days ago.
So I want to make it abundantly clear. This is going to be one of the videos of all time, guys. Yeah, stop the count. Exactly, mate. All those mail-in ballots have been arriving.
There you go. Exactly.
But anyway, look, if you go and look at the comments, right? Some of the comments
it should be like, what would that make it now then, Monty? Is it like 3rd most of all time or something?
No, I think it's still 5th. I think it's still 5th, but it might have moved up to 4th.
Oh, you're right, because the one after was 1.8. Well, you know what? Check back in a few days. Well, the joke obviously will be
one day
after this episode, guys. Check in a week, and maybe it's like #1 on their channel.
By the time this episode is released, it'll be #4.
I want to see where this goes. By the way, I actually low-key hope, Monty, if they just make it like 10 million views or something, just go fucking down. Just go for it. Just go for it.
So having watched the video, right? Can I just ask your professional opinion about this? Would you say there's anything special about it visually? Because
it's dry as fuck, isn't it?
Yeah. It has a guy who looks like Adrian Edmondson from the British comedy Bottom talking. I don't know who he is, but the bald dude with the glasses, right? Which I know is ironic coming from me, but we'll just ride it out, right? And then he's talking in front of a screen, and occasionally it cuts to like crowd reactions, crowd walkouts. Then it's just very normal graphics you would pick up from a package.
Yep.
Then it's got people talking like they're in South Park with their heads in off. And then it goes back to Adrian Edmondson, and then we're out, right? And it's 5 minutes long.
Yep.
So, okay, do you think that would generate comments such as, right? I've got them in front of me here. It says, wait. The visuals for this video are insane. Right? The visuals for this video are insane. Right, let's go down as another one. The editing is on point, right?
I love it. These are like such generic posts as well. Like,
incredible video format, editing, and hype. And if you just scroll down, you'll just keep seeing people praising the editing without specifying. It isn't spliced with what are clearly genuine comments, like saying, "Oh, I like the changes. I don't like Fearless Draft," that kind of thing. But it just keeps going on and on and on. And then occasionally you will just have this comment where it's like, wow, editing is great.
So you want to hear my theory, Richard?
What's that?
I do think that it is probable that LEC has boosted this video. But I think what they did is they bought some service that would boost their most recent 3 videos, which explains it because they probably want to boost the Calliste and the Jojo Pian videos. But what ended up happening is this one got the most boosted for some reason, but it makes absolutely no sense. Now, sometimes people
what you mean? If people check quickly, just to say this, like obviously in the last 2 days, they've released some videos since Monty did this, but basically there was a gap of months between the LEC video one, because it's for LEC, and the Jojo one. That was like, there was a massive gap between. So what you're saying could be plausible. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But because you would want those videos to have higher view counts, because then more people will click, like actually legitimately click on them. You could show it to sponsors.
This just got caught up as the 3rd video, basically.
Yeah, you could show it to sponsors and say, "Wow, look at all the hype for these new players that are joining our league." But it feels incredibly disingenuous.
I see what you mean.
It's not just that though. It's if you want something to get pushed into the algorithm, what you need is so this is the prescribed wisdom. Obviously, no one really knows what the YouTube algorithm does. It's just people kind of theorizing based on their own results from their own experimentation in running a channel. So take all of this with a pinch of salt, but this is the type of thing influencers will say, and it's the type of thing like, you know, when you go on those fucking videos and it's like, "Hey, want to get your YouTube views up, man?" And it's like some guy you've never heard of with like 200 views. But anyway, this is the shit that they say. They say that if you get a lot of views and a lot of likes and a lot of comments, all of those things will mean the YouTube algorithm, when scanning, do you like League of Legends? It will recommend a video, but it won't recommend any video. First and foremost, it will recommend a video that is popular and trending at the moment. If you click on that video and watch it, then what it'll do is next time you refresh your likes, there'll be another video either from the same channel or sometimes from the same channel and along the same topics. And then you click on that, and this creates this reinforcing loop that all of the nutters back in 2016 were saying, "This is radicalization." No, this is all social media and how it works. If you click on something and like something, it will recommend you more of that something. Yes, all roads apparently lead to fucking Joe Rogan or Nerdrotic for some reason, but ultimately this is how it functions. And so obviously if you wanted people to come to LEC and hear there was a hip new format, this is exactly the type of video you would try and artificially boost.
That's true,
algorithmically. Actually. So just putting that out there as someone who has observed these types of phenomenon in the social
especially if your channel
space.
hasn't been actively uploading for a couple months because you've been in the off season. This would be the time that you would do this. So I do find it suspicious that someone else would be view botting this channel, but it is clearly getting view botted. Clearly.
Yes. Very reminiscent. I mean, obviously, I've seen other examples of this, like recently, where there was like an Esports World Cup video. I think we might have actually talked about it on we might have talked about it before in a previous episode. I'm just going to quickly go to the channel now. There was basically one video, I think it was the launch trailer, where it was so insanely obviously boosted. And like if you look at the launch trailer, it's got 150 comments but 815,000 views. Loads of the comments are just fucking emojis. It's like so crazy. And it's like when you look, here you go, welcoming chess to the Esports World Cup. How many views do you think? How many views do you think that would get on a channel that usually generates under 5k views per video?
I think that could do 100k maybe. I mean, chess is like
2.4 million, my
okay,
homie.
no, that's bullshit.
2.4 million views with 49 comments. So it's everyone's at it. But what you have to understand as well is, obviously, this was something that the whole view botting thing, right? Like at the same time, if you did it to boost your individual channel, naughty, you would get banned by Twitch, you would get banned by YouTube. They denied me my fucking silver play button when I got past 100k because they said they couldn't ascertain whether my followers were real or not. And I've just been stuck on like, there was hilariously 5 years where I was stuck on like never going above like 116k. I've had more subs in the last I've had more subs.
It only
goes
up and down and stays at the same number basically. Yeah.
And every time I uploaded a video, 100 subs would immediately unsubscribe, right. And those people would come to me going, "I didn't click unsubscribe," and then YouTube said, "We absolutely aren't doing that. But if you aren't doing that, there's tens of thousands of people that claim that you are. So go figure." But anyway, that would get you banned. View botting is bad for them, except when they offer services that are ostensibly view botting, like Twitch did via the Curse Network, right? Yep. Where a video or a live stream like Overwatch,
which is something that I've said in the past. I know 100% accuracy that Overwatch League did. They did buy Twitch viewership.
Yes, of course they did. I mean, put it this way. I remember, first of all, people seem to forget when you opened your Activision Blizzard client, your Battle.net, it had the Overwatch stream just playing in that, and that they said that didn't count as a view. It counted as a view. Then you had it was embedded in the Curse Network. You go to a wiki, like I just want to look up who is the best counter for Keeper of the Light mid, and you go type that in, and while you're looking at, all right, build this, pick this hero, do that, right at the bottom before you scroll down, it's playing the Overwatch stream. You're now a view. And the amount of fuckery that's gone on in terms of like collating views across all media. This is why Facebook and Netflix and all these other companies that were misrepresenting views and hits and all of that stuff, Facebook in particular and Meta, that's why they ended up being sued by certain clients, because they're misrepresenting first of all, how many views and hits you're getting, and also what type of data they're collating and everything else. And it's no different in esports. That's what we've been doing. We've been fudging these numbers for such a long time. What I would say here is it is clearly being view botted. It's just interesting to see whether or not it's part of a campaign where that specific video has been embedded in another one of these networks. Because what's ironic is after Twitch pretended they weren't offering these services through the Curse subsidiary, they just quietly sold off Curse from the Twitch portfolio. But these services are still out there. If you want to get your video, your stream embedded in multiple wikis and multiple popular websites and have a bunch of artificial clicks that aren't real consumers of your content, you can pay for that. And that's fine, apparently, because it's the companies doing it, not individuals that want to break through.
Anyway, funny stuff. Obviously, this is very harmless, but it's just another example of not certain, but probable Riot fuckery here as we start the new 2025 season of League of Legends, and something I thought would give you guys a chuckle. We are going to talk.
I think it reeks of. I think it shows they're still a little bit insecure about what's going on with LEC.
Of
I think
course.
it really shows that, we've talked a lot about like League of Legends and the direction it's going in, and how they're continually downscaling, and obviously all roads going to lead to Riot eventually, because they don't seem to be able to monetize or improve their products. I think League is kind of like, honestly, it's played out outside of Worlds. People are getting bored of it. It's a boomer game now. It's not the new hip thing. It still looks like ass. It still plays like ass. Riot still control it. Riot still make a product that is absolute slop for morons. They appoint morons to regurgitate why the slop is good. You're the best Zimmerman, and they do this, and they wonder why is it all swirling down the toilet? It's really bad. So obviously, if you take this as part of a bigger picture, the fact they're having to viewbot an LEC explainer because they desperately want LEC to get into the algorithm and maybe persuade old viewers to come back, new viewers to give it a try. Yeah, I think that's pretty cataclysmic, because we know LEC isn't in a good place.
By the way, I'll even echo what Richard says there, because actually the fact that there is an actual real authentic trend of hype around Calist and Carmine Corp, Monty, makes this even more sinister, because like we're saying, surely a video like that, look, that one wouldn't, the Calist video itself should already have been able to get a few 100,000 anyway, just from how many fans there are. But if you need to sex that up, like that almost implies to me, like this isn't hitting hard enough for you. Even your one big moment, which as you say has almost been, if people don't know for real, that's why I joke that they're treating this guy like he is fucking Anakin Skywalker in the Phantom Menace. Like, they have been building towards this moment for years in the French scene, Monty. So this is like the one of the only big pops you're going to get like this. And if that wasn't enough and you had to viewbot it, like, what does that imply about the sport? Because in League of Legends, Western League of Legends, supposedly LEC is the success story, and LCS, which doesn't even exist now, is the failure. This implies even the success story isn't successful enough, because you're not going to get a more hyped rookie come along like that. Like, it's never going to happen. So I agree with Richard. It's sort of like a fucking bad omen for the future, mate.
I think at the very least what we can say is that if this is their idea of effective marketing, they have completely run out of ideas about how to market the league. If the answer is now we're just going to buy a bunch of YouTube views, then they've lost the plot.
The most hilarious thing is, they actually Scooby-Doo style would have gotten away with it if they just didn't realize that the video that got caught up is the most dry video on the whole channel with zero draw, like we just pointed out. That's what gave it away, you idiots. That's the smoking gun. If that third video had just been another like music video, you could have gotten away with it. No one would have noticed in theory. But what ruined you is that the shittest video on your channel got all the views to 1.7 million.
I mean, what made me notice is I was like, wait, 1 million views for a format explainer? I'm like, this is my dream, guys. Everyone cares about format explainers. Yeah. Everyone is turned into Monty.
Yeah, there you go. It's your time to shine, evidently.
It's my time. I'm going to make... By the way, Richard, if I can just make format videos and make 1 million views every time, guess who's going to be making big money? It's me, the format explainer guy.
Of course, yeah. But I mean, look, I'm saying, to be fair, you said they were out of ideas. It was indicative they were out of ideas. It's not that they're out of ideas. It's just that they've got loads of ideas, but they're all from 10, 12 years ago. That's the problem. That's always been the problem with Riot. I mean, well, one of the many problems with Riot. That when it comes to, everyone's like, why don't you do this? Well, of course, we would never do this, because our internal data shows that doing that would actually be bad. You mustn't do this. You mustn't, to have Twitch subs and the haves and have-nots among all of our fans will be outrageous. 10 years later, we've got some great new ideas to monetize LCS, and it's like, Twitch subs, guys, and everyone's like, we told you to do that. You've left millions on the table by not doing it when we all told you to do it. And here we are again. It's like, it could have been view bottom the whole time. No one would have given a fuck. Now you're doing it, and it's really conspicuous because everyone's hyper aware of it.
You could have at least viewed before and then got an investment of tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
The end when there's no money to do
view bot on the way up, not on the way down, dickhead.
It's true. It's true.
It's like, literally, like, I'm starting. I never thought I would say this. I always feel sorry for these Riot executives.
For fucking penny stocks, you moron. If you're going to risk the SEC to do it for billions, that is not advice. I'm not a lawyer. Blah blah.
Yeah, whatever. Now sign up to Thorin Coin.
Exactly.
A new, not a Ponzi scheme.
I didn't want to. I'll bring it forwards, but we are launching the LFN meme coin today, guys. If you just put all your life savings into it, then you could triple up and make esports great again. Anyway.
We could participate in a Trump and dump like a like the great ones. So.
Anyway, all right. So I do want to talk about the TikTok stuff because you might be wondering, why do you guys want to talk about the TikTok stuff? Because it may hilariously end up with something with Riot Games and other Chinese owned.
Duncan's launching his NPC TikTok stream after this. It is, of course, going to be on Little Red Book. It's not going to be on Little Red North. It's not going to be on fucking TikTok.
Really,
obviously,
I think you should
do
your
ice cream. So good.
No,
it's going to be great.
Richard, you should do your NPC stream because I'm pretty sure people would donate an infinite number of little tokens to you just to hear you say, "How about today, dickhead?"
That is true. Just having a little dickhead emoji like float up. No, obviously it's maximum glizzy overdrive. People want to see me do, which
To be fair, that video was very funny.
It was.
My two favorite Richard Lewis meme clips are the glizzy one, and then the one where he's just going like, "Hose mad, hose mad." That's also one of my favorites.
I think Richard would be the best NPC streamer.
Yes, yeah, he's still the boomer tech.
Yeah, fantastic. But anyway, no, it is important, and I'm hoping we're gonna make it more important and more relevant to the world of esports by launching another crusade. It's time, guys.
All right,
it is time.
But first up, we actually do have a new sponsor on the Four Horsemen, which is very exciting.
Read this and do the ad read in the style of an NPC stream. Sponsor, so good.
Sponsor, so good. AG1, so delicious. Our sponsor is AG1, guys, and it is a supplement that it's a powder supplement that you drink every morning. It contains general vitamins as well as probiotics and superfood supplements. So it's all blended together into one thing. So you can kind of like knock out your multivitamin as well as probiotics, which help your gut health all in one go. It has 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. It's great. Honestly, I've been drinking it every day for over a year now. And I can say gut health has been great. Personally, for me, also more energy in the mornings, generally speaking. Also just helps you get some water into your system in the morning because you remember to drink it and you'll drink half a liter of water with this most of the time. I also just use it to put other supplements into. So I'll put a scoop of creatine into it as well. Just knock out everything. Tastes. I really enjoy the taste of it. It has like pineapple cores and vanilla flavoring. So it definitely has a good taste to it as well. And yet, I mean, it just gives me energy, kind of keeps me going. I've really enjoyed it, can help boost your immune system as well. So you guys should check out AG1, see if it's right for you guys. Especially with the new year, you might be making some health related New Year's resolutions, and this can kind of fill in the holes in terms of vitamins that you may not be getting from your diet. So this new year, you can try AG1 for yourself. It's the perfect time to start a healthy new habit. And if you guys go with our code, AG1 is offering new subscribers a free $75 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, so D3K2 vitamins.
I really like that. If people don't know, one of the most annoying things, obviously, supplements is having to take the pill each day. The brilliant thing about that is because it's a dropper, Monty. You just drop one drop on your tongue, it's done. Like that one's mega, especially by the way, obviously it's winter. If you're in Europe, we have no fucking sun right now. So that's actually a bang. You just do one drop each morning. It's super easy.
You can put it in with your AG1 too. That's what I do. Is I just drop it into the bottle with the AG1, and you'll get 5 free travel packs in your first box, which are very helpful because you take it on the road. The AG1, they'll give you like a metal canister that you put the AG1 into, throw it in your fridge, take a scoop out every day. It get hard to take with you on the road. So make sure to check out drinkag1.com/horsemen, plural. To get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/horsemen to start your new year on a healthier note. So thank you to AG1. And again, supporting our sponsors, best way to support us up here at LFN, which is what we'll talk about later on the state of LFN. But we really appreciate it. It's product I use every day. And I've very enjoyed it.
The death of media.
The death of media.
We will be talking about all media.
Yeah. And speaking of the death of media, the death of TikTok has arrived. Look, for all we know, when this show gets to you, TikTok will have been executive order necroed, and
I do appreciate the way people are acting today, like we're the ones left over from the rapture. Like I love the way that people are just like wilding out. Oh, what's going on with the world? don't think they've just turned off an app for today, mate. Like I'd wait and see how it plays out before you do anything too drastic. You know?
So the reason why we're talking about the TikTok stuff, guys, is because the meaning of the legislation that happened is because TikTok is a very weird app that takes way more data than it should, especially in comparison to other social media apps. If you guys don't know, TikTok can actually read all your private messages, and it scrapes your contact list on your phone, which is why it is literally not allowed to be installed on U.S. government devices. Okay.
Yep.
And so
the joke is, even if you yourself aren't on TikTok, you know, well, they can't get my shit. No, they've got it from all your friends and your family, so they've got it all anyway. Don't worry.
Yes,
in a sense, you're on TikTok, even if you're not on TikTok. That's the problem.
Yes.
I mean, you know, obviously, I've never had a TikTok account, and everyone was saying, "Rich, you gotta get on TikTok, man. That'll really help your views." And I'm like, yeah, but like, at what fucking cost? You know what I mean? Like I'm good. There's no amount of clicks that's gonna make me feel that it's worth like literally. I mean, look, obviously all of this shit in this room is probably a spying device of some sort. But when we, as we'll get to, when we have empirical evidence of the fucking, you know, of TikTok employees potentially at the behest of the Chinese government utilizing this shit to like track journalists and spy on certain public figures. Yeah, I'm good actually.
Right.
I'm good.
And so TikTok, you know, is it's an app owned by a company called ByteDance in China. TikTok is very deliberately not allowed in China, by the way. Now, the Chinese will let the rest of the world have it, but because the Chinese themselves are concerned about TikTok's effect on Chinese people, they will not allow it in China, particularly young people, because they don't want them, you know, scrolling videos all day on TikTok. Now, the other aspect of this is that the U.S. government was concerned that TikTok could be used to basically, the algorithm could be manipulated to soft spread Chinese propaganda or affect U.S. elections. Now, clearly, because the U.S. is effectively in a Cold War with China, this is a concern. So I think these are valid concerns, even though TikTok has said that they have siloed, you know, U.S. data within the United States. Who knows what ByteDance has, you know, in China? There's not really a way to know that. So the point is that this app was banned. Congress very heavily bipartisan vote overwhelmingly voted to pass this ban. It was then upheld 9-0 by the Supreme Court as TikTok made some extremely flimsy First Amendment arguments, as if the platform was a person with free speech, which we can, you know, interestingly interpret.
That was actually I read the arguments that they put forward, and some of the reactions from like constitutional scholars and lawyers and, you know, free speech specialists, and they were all very surprised at how flimsy the argumentation was. Yeah, they were very surprised that like there is certainly a First Amendment argument you can make for the non-banning of TikTok. It's that the way the company went about it showed a complete lack of understanding for what that argument would need to be. So I do want to put that out there. That, I mean, look, we'll in a moment I'm going to contradict what I'm saying here, but just know that real Richard, not let's try and be funny Richard and fuck League of Legends, you know, and all of that stuff, Richard, right? Like, I definitely think there are some free speech concerns about this. It's almost unprecedented for the US to come in and ban an entire electronic platform because of the nature of what's being disseminated there, but more importantly, where that information, where that data is going.
Right. And there's obviously
constituting it a security threat.
Yeah, there's obviously concerns that in the future they could ban other platforms because they don't like this free speech that's happening on there.
It's very important. If you want to make it not about China, there's a constant discussion in Europe as to whether the EU, especially because of Elon Musk, said will ban Twitter. Yeah. That's like a constant discussion. So these things are happening around the world. By the way, I'll do the same as Richard. My joke opinion is I just prefer to be spied on by the CIA and MI6. You know, it's just the better the devil you know, as it were. No, but I also agree with a similar thing. I actually have my position sort of like, unfortunately, I think you should sort of either allow all or essentially none. Like, that's the issue I have. Because to me, the other thing that this sort of gives away, the second level reading of it, is the reason why you governments know that you can use this to propagandize people is you're doing it, but it's just more effective and it's not you doing it through, like, you have your apps and you have your way of doing it and you're just mad that they're better at it than you. There's a bit of the stink of that too.
Yeah, and look, so also you kind of have to look at the fact that like, so I also recognize that TikTok probably is the cause of a lot of social contagion, as has been
Of course,
argued.
yeah,
I mean
sure.
that is probably more, not that I want
absolutely.
to pigeonhole myself politically. That might be a more conservative argument than a libertarian argument. I
I think
tend to skew
any crazy
more left
rabbit
and right.
hole you can imagine, it's
Yeah.
all over TikTok. That's the genesis almost. Yeah, I'm with you.
But I broadly, and I've said this for years, I think social media should carry an 18 plus. I mean, just for
Agreed.
starters, I think social media should have an 18 plus limit in the same way you would regulate anything else that's
Yeah.
potentially harmful for children and teenagers. And then the other thing is, I think, look, like Duncan says, there isn't a socially harmful rabbit hole you can't go down. There isn't a misinformation that cannot be spread. There isn't a social trend that isn't dangerous. I mean, it's everything. It's like, look, kids always used to do crazy shit back in the day. Like we used to do knock a door run when I was a kid. And what does that mean? You knock on someone's door and then you run. But if you just so happen to knock on some fucking paedophile psychopath killer, you're dead in the basement, you know? But like kids used to do it all the time. There weren't no apps telling us to do this. We used to play chicken. I knew a kid when I was growing up got killed. Boom, just wiped out by a fucking car, just mullered because you run across the road at the last minute. And you know, like fucking and obviously if the car's swerving, you don't know where that's gonna go. Why are kids doing this stuff? It's like part of growing up. You engage in danger-seeking behavior. But the problem that I've seen on TikTok is it is putting danger-seeking behavior kind of like it's amplifying it and it's putting it out there. So even little things like kids watching that, like, have you seen that thing where you do the wheelie on a bike and you swerve away from a car at the last minute? So it's kind of like a variant of chicken doing that when everyone was huffing and smoking and vaping Tide Pods and eating Tide Pods. That
Even
was
the
a fucking
modern shit of
TikTok thing.
Galaxy Gas, all that, like every bad
Yeah,
trend
yeah.
seems to generate from there, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and where this sort of ties into the bigger issue, the more important issue, it's not just kids being stupid. That's been true since time immemorial. But I will say there's more vectors for it now in their lives,
Sure.
and social media is a large part of that. But I mean, look, the other issue you've got is that's not going out to Chinese kids very
Right.
often. I have seen a few exceptions. I have seen like the firecracker challenge where you put a fucking firework in your mouth and light it and people are blowing their fucking face off and all this crazy stuff. That was definitely happening in China. I saw the videos, laughed at the videos, and then felt bad for laughing at the videos. But anyway, it's not happening to Chinese teenagers. And it was and where this kind of came to a head and where the ban for TikTok really started to generate a lot of attention was when certain political viewpoints were being pushed over others, but only to American audiences. And obviously, the big one was during the Israel-Palestine conflict, which, depending on which side of the argument you're on, you know, you're either a believer in Israel's right to predetermination, its right to defend itself, even if that means carpet bombing thousands of children into oblivion, or you believe that Israel are occupiers, colonizers that run an apartheid state, and there is no form of resistance that should be off the table to beat Israel. That seems to be the two lines of thought. What started happening in the aftermath of October 7th was Osama bin Laden's letter to America, that famous letter that it was said where, you know, the reason we hate you is because of your support for Israel. The reason we hate you is because of all of these things you've meddled in Middle Eastern nations. The reason we hate you is
Presences,
because, you know,
etc., all that shit. Yeah.
Exactly. And there's this long letter that was certainly written by bin Laden and not the CIA. That was out there, and it even got published in some papers, and it went viral on TikTok. And you had a bunch of American teenagers going, "That bin Laden guy had a point." And at that point, American politicians.
I love bin Laden now.
By the way, the Unabomber's manifesto has been going around similarly.
That was another thing. Yeah, Krasinski. So you had this, you know, you had the literal meme coming to life, like my relationship over with Democrats now. Bin Laden and radical Islam are my new best friend, and that's what was happening on TikTok.
I'll never get over. Listen, I know every boomer says it, but you are the stupidest generation in history. I can't handle the idea you're sat with a mobile phone device watching on TikTok a video about how Ted Kaczynski was right about technology. Like, please, you can't be satirized. This is impossible.
So anyway, obviously at that point, people start asking questions like, why is the Palestinian view, although I don't think this was necessarily algorithmically altered, but this was the type of question that politicians in America were asking. Why was it why were you way more likely to encounter pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas videos than you were pro-Israel videos? Why? Why were you more likely to encounter videos that were denigrating the American government and supporting radicals like bin Laden? Why? And so that why is pretty much at the heart of everything that's happened, because the theory is it's not just that your data is going to the Chinese government and they can fuck with you, fuck with private citizens, spy on journalists, spy on politicians, maybe compromise them. It's also that China wants America to be destabilized. And all the arguments people use about Russia trying to do this with, misinformation. China are doing it, but they're doing it on a much bigger scale because they have access to the platform that kids use, and that's TikTok. And so what would be harmful to American society? Telling the upcoming generation that, the government is bad. I mean, that kind of based, if you ask me. They've got a point. The government is bad. They're doing all this terrible stuff. Radicals and terrorists are actually the heroes and the freedom fighters. They're lying to you about everything from flat earth to UFOs, and just encouraging this fucking, not just brain rot, but a brain rot that goes into a particularly nasty direction if it's ever actualized. And understand that when you do it on a scale of millions, yes, you are going to radicalize a handful of people that are going to go on to do terrible things. And this has been a primary concern of the TikTok platform in America as it stands.
Yeah, and that's all very interesting, but to relate it to esports, the question becomes: if they
it's
are
an esports podcast.
Sorry, sorry, that's all right. No, it was great. I think it's a very interesting topic to talk about. But I think it's interesting that this is going to potentially play out in companies that are owned either partially or entirely by Chinese corporations, right? Because ByteDance is not wholly, it's not like it's owned by the Chinese government. BlackRock, the American firm, has a massive stake in ByteDance. Tencent is a publicly traded company, but like all publicly traded companies in China, even they are not immune. They have to have members of the Communist Party on their boards. And the concerning part when it came to TikTok was that basically, for intelligence reasons, the Chinese government can demand the data from ByteDance at any point in time, and ByteDance must turn it over. That's like one of the major concerns. And so if you are a company that is wholly owned by a Chinese company, like our dear friends over at Riot Games, and coincidentally, now we talked about the data that the TikTok app takes from your phone. Well, what if I told you there was a company wholly owned by a Chinese corporation that had kernel level access to every PC of every user?
Who could ever have predicted that might come back to bite us later when you guys all said it was fine because apparently every app has that. Remember, that was the argument. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
So, by the way, that kernel level access is far more insidious because it's always on as well. The always on kernel level access. It's not like easy anti-cheat or these programs that have kernel level access while you're playing the game.
On my phone, League of Legends is on my PC where all my tax documents are. Shit like that. In theory, the PC's way more compromisable than my fucking phone. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, that's going to be the next question going in is how deep is this going to go? And also, it's not like Tencent just owns a piece of Riot. I don't know if they still own a piece of Blizzard after Microsoft bought them. I don't actually know the answer to that question. They do own a piece of Epic Games as well. They own large stakes in various, especially gaming companies. And will these companies have to divest? Is going to be an excellent question. But I can't imagine that if we are concerned about the data and possible, implications of that data being used by the Chinese government for intelligence work, that this is going to be just cool that, Riot Games, which is owned by Tencent, which we talked about in Something Insight, Tencent has now been connected to the Chinese military, is now, you guys saw an official announcement that basically the U.S. government is saying, Tencent is a Chinese military threat at this point in time, which, by the way, as we said, carries no penalties. It doesn't do anything, but it does put them kind of on the radar of these things happening in the future. And also, one thing you may not know, if you guys aren't mobile gamers, is that Marvel Snap, that game that was created by many of the people who created Hearthstone.
Yeah, Ben Brode, right?
Ben Brode. Ben Brode left Blizzard and went and founded, started Marvel Snap, and they got the Marvel IP. They made a bunch of money. Well, guess who owns them? If you guessed ByteDance, you'd be correct. Guess what happened to Marvel Snap today? It's not available either, guys.
It got
Thanos snapped. So it wasn't just TikTok and Lemonade and some of these other apps that were more publicly owned by ByteDance. Marvel Snap is now out as well. So, this is, I think, stage one probably of this happening, but it's hard to imagine that Riot and other Tencent-owned companies are just going to be immune to this in the long haul.
I mean, certainly not. And look, you have to understand, as you rightly point out, ByteDance is one thing. ByteDance doesn't have this designation that Tencent has. ByteDance is, broadly seen as a media company, quite rightly, many websites in its portfolio and other projects that it works on. But TikTok has been deemed a threat to American society, even after, by the way, in 2022, because of growing concerns around what TikTok was doing with American data, they started an internal initiative which was called Project Texas, which was so all American user data were only kept on servers in the US, and they weren't going out to China. But obviously, I mean, that could just be bullshit, right? You
only need one spy passing that data along, Richard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, put it this way. I think that started in early 2022. By December 2022, that was when the story came out that ByteDance basically had to fire 4 employees for spying on journalists. There was a big story about it. They were using, I think it was published in Forbes. Or it might be in Financial Times. It was one of the two. It was one of the financial papers that ran the story. But basically, they used the phones and the access to TikTok to track journalists' whereabouts, see who they were meeting, and they could even turn on the microphone of the devices. So, think about how potentially compromising that is. Now, with all of that said and done, you would then have to assume that now that Tencent is deemed a Chinese military company that operates across, multiple territories in the US, you would absolutely have to assume, because it's Epic Games as well, right? It's not just Riot. They own a huge share of Epic Games. I think it's like 35, maybe 40%.
And they own a bunch of other titles too. Like, you guys may not know this,
Path of Exile.
I mean, they bankroll tons of up-and-coming games also. Yeah. So because Tencent's looking for that next hit, what they do is they basically serve as a venture capital fund for new games. So, this is actually what happened with Riot, is Riot was snapped up by Tencent I think even before the release of the game in 2009, Tencent bought something like 92% of the company very, very early on. And this is what Tencent often does, which is buy massive stakes in up-and-coming games.
It literally says on February 2011 is when they bought the majority equity interest. So that was when they did the majority of the ones. That means the initial one, well, maybe you could have been even earlier though. But if people don't know, like League as an esport started to get bigger like 2012 onwards. That's before, you're right. That was before the trend even took off. It wasn't the biggest game. By the way, all I'll do is just for food for thought for people listening to this conversation. Just think of this for a second. Can you imagine how differently people would respond to this news in esports if this was just the US military that had the fucking game that we're all playing? Like, again, think about what Richard just alluded to, how all social media is all sort of stuff of like, you can't trust the US military, the country's evil, they support all these regimes. If the actual military themselves, like the US Army, was involved with fucking an esports game, like imagine Counter-Strike's an American game. Imagine if that was a direct adjunct of the military. I don't think people would be silent about that.
Let's say you can do it. You've got your example. America's Army, that was a game that was
that old game
for recruitment purposes. So let's say that was the biggest, let's say that was an S-tier esport that was active right now, and wholly owned by the US government, and there was all these platforms that were putting out all of this messaging about why it's good to join the military and fight all our enemies abroad, and you can't trust this group of people, you can't trust people from this group of people. Obviously everyone would be outraged and repulsed, right? You would see it for what it was. And here we've had, and look, I don't want to toot my horn. I've been talking about the encroaching Chinese influence. Basically, what's happened is, while everyone's been looking at Russia over here, like you do to a fucking cobra, you put your hand up, right? While they've been like, yeah, and rightly so. Russia are definitely, fucking with the fabric of American society. I just think it's over-exaggerated to which degree and how effective it actually is. But while they're looking at that, right, the old fucking, Steve Irwin of China's got your hand round the back and it's grabbing your fucking tail. And that's what's
basically China and Russia are the flirting harassment meme. China, it's fine because they're the Chad apparently. And then Russia's like, it's weird. By the way, just to confirm, it actually does say, like Monty said, they bought the majority interest in 2011. Still, by the way, before the esport popped off. But it says there the previous investment was in 2008. Guys, the beta came out like 2009. But Monty's right. Essentially, this was just one of many lottery tickets they put out there to see which games would blow up. And if this one hadn't, it would have been a big deal. Like that's how the reason why I bring this up, Monty, is this. This isn't that a giant company with a lot of money bought a successful game so they could operate and do this. No, this is like you're planting seeds, almost like a fucking initial investor, and then you want at the end to come in and go, I'll take over that thing and control it all. Like, you're obviously doing it for some other reason. It wasn't a big game. It wasn't, you're right.
And they've been doing this since the mid 2000s. Like and so tons of games, guys, by new developers are funded, and majority owned by Tencent. They are one of the biggest entities funding developers in the world. So it's not like it's just going to be Riot.
Let's get on our crusade, because we've got a very limited window of opportunity here, guys. I already talked about this on my stream. I think the guy to write to might be Ted Cruz, the Zodiac Killer, because out of all of the boomers, he seems a little bit more tech savvy than some of the others, right? And also, he loves grandstand and he loves a fucking. Don't show him this clip, by the way, when I write to him, like, cause it's going to be really flattering and full of love.
No, he always. I know what you mean. Every single Ted Cruz press conference is like he thinks he's in the biopic about Ted Cruz. Like Man of the People. 20 years from now, it's true. It's true.
Right. And so so I already said it on the last stream I did on my personal stream. I'm going to write to Ted Cruz and be like, dear Representative Cruz, my name's Richard Lewis. I wanted to bring something to your attention. I've had the pleasure of living in the fine country of
America. U.S. citizen Richard Lewis.
On multiple exceptional visas, and I have grave concerns about this menace affecting the fabric of society. As you will know, you've recently said that Tencent is a military organization. Are you aware that they are installing spyware on millions of teenagers' computers all across your fine country? And it would be remiss of me to allow America to fall into this dark time.
No, Richard, you have to say, League of Legends is a boomer game, so it's actually millions of security and IT professionals' computers, and probably the millennials who work for
This is why we workshop it. And then what we do
is...
And
all you have to say is, if the military, any PC has League of Legends installed, there you go. That's the exploit, mate. That's the back door, right? There you go.
That is the back door, because you have to have the spyware now. And so here's what we can make happen.
Valorant.
We can get League of Legends temporarily banned in the US. Absolutely stick it to Mark Merrill and Riot Games in a way they've never been stuck before. And here's the beauty of it: Tencent would then have to sell to somebody else.
But here's the thing, Richard.
Like TikTok, we can do this. This is a real thing that can happen.
But here's the thing. You want to hear my tinfoil hat theory?
Okay, go on.
So I wonder, honestly, this is me honestly wondering, and I have no information for this.
Oh, okay? Jesus, the disclaimers are killing me. Right? Come on.
I know.
You ready? You ready, my tinfoil?
It's going to be spicy,
Christopher. Like,
it's going to be spicy, I can tell. I know. Come on.
So you ready for this? All right.
Come on.
So my tinfoil hat theory is that Riot did the always on kernel level anti-cheat so that they would be forced to be sold from Tencent because they actually No. I don't think they want to be part of a publicly traded company because I think they want to continue to spend $250 million on Arcane and they can't be scrutinized like that. And I think what Riot...
Because if just for people who don't get it, the premise being because it's publicly traded, you have to answer to your shareholders why you spent all that money. Whereas you can just spend the money if you want it, right? If you
I think what Riot truly wants, I think what Riot truly wants more than anything is to be sold to a private company who's like all in with their, yes, it doesn't matter how much money it costs. We're going to build fandom over decades and we're going to spend all this money.
You mean like the Savvy Games Group?
Oh,
that sounds a bit like that Savvy thing I've heard of. You know?
Whoa, yeah. So you know who might be down for that? You know who might be down for a multi-decade growth project? The Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is why they bought Faceit and ESL.
Listen,
and also,
all roads lead to Riyadh. You have to understand that in the modern day. All roads lead to Riyadh.
Also, we know, the three of us, that Riot executives have been mysteriously flying to Riyadh for a while to do whatever they're doing out there.
No opinion and no take from this show is going to age as well as the one where I said eventually you're going to have ESL / Savvy Games Group / whatever it's going to be called, and they're going to be producing all English-speaking League of Legends competitions, while all the League of Legends executives go off and LARP at being TV producers. 100%. Like that.
Well,
that's
that second part's already happening. That second part's already happening.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
they already are LARPing. But there's been too much smoke, and like I've said on previous shows, I think it's either that they're trying to have the Saudis buy all of Riot, or at the very least, they're trying to spin off the esports division as its own company, set up some 10-year licensing agreement where the Saudis take over all esports costs and they have a decade-long runway where they get exclusive production, rights to it with, obviously with a lot of control from Riot. But I think Riot doesn't want to be in the esports business anymore, is my guess, because obviously it's a
hilarious statement. The fact that I don't even immediately have to dispute that is mental. We only have the biggest games in the world. I don't really want to be in this esports business anymore. Brilliant. Awesome. That was all good then. Yeah, great.
So look, man, I just think, so my tinfoil hat theory is that the kernel level anti-cheat that is always on may have been a deliberate attempt to force Tencent to sell them.
Okay.
Because it creates too many red flags. Because I don't think they want to be owned by Tencent.
Somewhat ironic, but yeah, true. It does create too many red flags. You are right in that sense.
Well, but the thing about it is that what benefit do they have being owned by Tencent? Remember that they had no equity to give employees anymore, so they had to give them more profit sharing and like fake equity, basically, because Tencent had to start that. Otherwise, they would have lost a lot of their talent to potential startups or competitors that could actually give them more, stock options within the company, because Tencent ended up owning 100% of this company. And so because Tencent still owns 100% of this company, it's irrelevant to them, I think, what the amount of money that Riot gets sold for, because I don't think they are going to get Riot is not going to get anything from that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. So to them, it doesn't matter. There's no like.
So they might as well sabotage their own market value, in order to precipitate a sale. And honestly, it may not have to happen. Here's the thing, guys. Riot may not have to suffer the fate of TikTok, because I think even the threat of that happening is now very real. And if I'm Tencent, I'm like, oh God, we have kernel level access to all PCs of all of our users. Maybe it's time to jettison this before we're forced to, and we get less money for Riot, right? So this whole thing may precipitate a sale anyway.
Yeah. I mean, look, but it's possible. I definitely feel from talking to multiple people at Riot, there was kind of a sense that when they became wholly owned by Tencent, there was that kind of sense that like they were going to lose some autonomy, and people broadly didn't like it. But I will also add, I mean, what it's enabled them to do moving forward seems to be more in line with a lot of the D20 C-suite levels of unfettered narcissism. As I said, I'm pretty sure Mark Merrill is a lot happier, flying out to Saudi, enjoying junkets while he tries to negotiate an underwriting for his esports program, and then flying out to not flying out because he just lives there, but LA, and fucking swanning around, having meetings with Netflix executives, pitching all of his incredible original ideas about cartoons and other programming. I'm sure he's much happier in that world, right?
Did you know, Richard, you'll appreciate this, that Mark Merrill actually said that people didn't realize before Arcane that there was a market for animation focused at adults.
Oh, it's insane.
He literally said
that. You mean the meme? He's done the meme again, Monty. In the same way as we joke that they think they invented esports, he now thinks he invented anime.
Yeah, animation for adults. And obviously, the Japanese alone discovered this decades ago, in the 70s. And also, even within his own market, there were movies in the 80s like Heavy Metal being made. I don't even know what he's fucking talking about.
Hasn't Satoshi Kon been dead for about 10 years? You know what I mean? Wasn't that ages ago that he died?
I mean,
come on.
Let's also just be clear. Arcane came out in 2021. Adult Swim, an entire channel owned by fucking Turner.
Oh, network was on it.
Well, it was a programming block on Cartoon Network, but yes, it's very famous.
Yeah, yes, had adult cartoon.
Yeah, of course it did. What do you think Aqua Teen Hunger Force was, or Venture Brothers?
Yeah, it's so I couldn't think
those channels used to show all the shonen shit. They used to show all the fucking, the Toonami shit and all that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was one of the first people. That's one of the first ways people in the West saw Cowboy Bebop, for example.
Yes, absolutely. Correct. Yeah. Which, as I said, look, a lot of that stuff isn't my jam, but I'll definitely say this: there are some bangers out there which existed years and years before Arcane came along, which isn't even to be critical of Arcane. I think for what it is, it's well done.
It is good.
Yeah,
but it's like you say, Richard, inferred within what Mark Merrill's saying there is the notion that the 90s Ninja Scroll movie was for kids.
Yeah. Or
you're the fucking listen, I don't care how mad you think Japanese people are. That wasn't for kids. They have rape scenes in that movie and everything. It's obviously for adults in it. This guy again is completely his finger not on the pulse as usual.
My favorite animated series is one of them, but certainly right up there is the Boondocks. The Boondocks was mega. I was playing the Boondocks on fucking the election night stream that we did, because obviously they did that song "Dick Riding for Obama."
That, by the way, the Boondocks was so prescient, and that "Dick Riding for Obama" song is so fucking funny.
Yeah, and then he actually went and did it for Kamala. Yes. So he did another "Yes We Can" fucking song, didn't he? Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I loved all that stuff. You wouldn't have had that without Adult Swim. But the problem was that wasn't just an animated series. That was an animated series that was adapted originally from a comic strip that was
in the papers.
Aimed at which was aimed at the black community, but it was also a satire about American society and how the black community interfaces with American society. It's very high level stuff. A lot of people might just remember some of the funny catchphrases, whatever. But not me. If you engage with the Boondocks for what it is, it's actually an incredibly intelligent.
There's loads of social commentary. Yeah, absolutely.
What everyone gives fucking South Park a pat on the back. You have to understand where they started, where it was just Cartman having probes up his ass. The Boondocks came out straight fucking fire and saying incredible things. So
I love South Park, and I love its satire, but it did start as toilet humor, and it only got really clever later on.
It was puerile, is what it was. The Boondocks was never really about that. And so it's look, if Mark Merrill wants to go back and claim that the Boondocks, which came out in 2005, isn't possible because of him, then please do it. I know several black community thought leaders that would love to hear that opinion from you. That's actually insane. It's but it's also it's typical of the man and typical of the
what he said. If you were doing the trash journalism everyone else thinks is fine now, the headline would be Mark Merrill says the Boondocks is for children.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Exactly. I mean, look, obviously, if I ever wanted to go to the dark side and engage in rage bait, obviously, it's super.
They'd be all over that.
Yeah, it's like it's one of the last good Onion headlines, which was "We pretend to hate something you like." You know, that one. We pretend to hate something you like, so you click on this article, and that's just the headline. You know?
And then
but anyway,
people clicking, going, "Don't give them attention, guys," as they're engaging.
I know,
They're engaging. My favorite loophole.
Yeah. But look, I think on this front, I definitely feel that you are going to see us get to an interesting place. Like, I don't think TikTok's going to stay permanently banned. I think all my indications are like Trump operates on a very basic premise. I'm sorry to go back to politics, guys, but it is interwoven. Trump operates on a very simple premise. If something is good for him, or if someone kisses his ass, then they are the best. They are the most competent. The business is incredible. It is a boom for America, and he will do anything in his power to promote it and prop it up. If at any point it is not good for Trump, and it doesn't say very flattering and complimentary things, and he doesn't think he can bring them to heel or turn them around like he did with his vice president, J.D. Vance, then they're out. They're out and they're gone forever. And he will use the full extent of either, prior to him being in political life, his financial influence, or and indeed his social media presence and his media presence. And now that he's a president, obviously can use his political
literally just the classic friend-enemy distinction. Yeah, it's absolutely obvious. Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's why all of his supporters who say he's playing five-dimensional Jenga, you just can't see it. No, I absolutely can see what he's doing.
Smart, guys.
But by the same token, the people who were all going, he's vindictive, he's a fascist, he's all this. No, it's very, very simple. And if you want to understand why people like, Bezos and, all these other people, Elon Musk, by the way, has been, not defamatory, but he's been insulting about Trump in the past. If you want to know why there's this sudden turnaround, it's because they understand that now that he's won, this is the game you have to play. By the way, it's not unique to Trump. Everybody wanted an in with the Obama administration. That's just how the game's played in America. Because, spoiler, you do have an oligarchy, and you're the world's biggest banana republic. Stop LARPing as some sort of beacon of democracy. You are not that. You are a banana republic wrought large. Like, basically, if Cuba or any of these other countries that you malign had the scale, size, resources, and wealth that your country did, this is what it would look like. So shut the fuck up about that. But anyway, Trump's very simple. And as a result, as we know, he said on the campaign trail, TikTok helped him. He said, I'm huge on TikTok. He did this interview on a podcast. I can't remember which one it was, but it had me in stitches. I played it on my stream. And he said, I asked one of my advisors, and I said, I don't do a very good Trump, but I'm still going to do it. And I said to him, I said, who do you think is the biggest influencer in the world? And you know what he said? He said, that's an easy one to answer. And I said, is it? Well, who is it? And he said, it's you, sir. And then I thought about it, and, I realized he was really right. I am the biggest influencer. I'm huge on TikTok. And I was just like, fucking hell. Like,
it's just tweeted, I am TikTok. There you go.
Yeah, no, but it's like when Steven Seagal, like when fucking John Leguizamo went into his fucking trailer and he saw Steven Seagal a big crying, and he said, "Oh, is everything all right?" And he went, "Yeah, I just read this amazing, like, powerful script. It just blew me away. It was just so emotionally resonant and compelling." And Leguizamo says, "Fucking well, who wrote it?" And Steven Seagal goes, "Me." It's such a great story. But that's Trump. Trump and Steven Seagal are basically simpatico, the same person, in many ways. And so anyway, because of that, this is a long-winded way of saying that ultimately I think Trump will pull some strings to get TikTok broadly unbanned. He might talk to one of his oligarch wealthy friends, like a Pete Thiel or someone like that, might want to take it over, and under their stewardship and some partial ownership deal and a treaty, it can come back. TikTok won't stay banned in the US. And I think a lot of these other, like Marvel Snap isn't going to stay banned in the US. It's all going to come back eventually, but this is pretty, but as with everything Trumpian, there's going to be fucking strings attached. And the strings all go to him, the master.
I think the question is whether the algorithm comes with it, because the Chinese government has said that ByteDance can't release the algorithm. Like, they can't sell it because it's
Which
like
tells you what game
secret.
is being played over there, obviously. By the way.
Yeah. But the other thing is that there have already been offers made for TikTok without the algorithm, because people think, oh, we'll just rebuild our own algorithm with blackjack and hookers, right?
What I don't understand, guys, is it's almost like, I just want to plant a seed here. It's almost like esports isn't actually a serious business, because what I don't understand, Richard, is the answer's simple. Just have Tencent sell the company to a company based in like Armenia or Cyprus, and then they wouldn't anymore own it, and everything could just continue on as normal. I don't understand what's the problem here. What's the problem?
I know.
Haven't we solved that problem already?
I still am amazed that they
Norwegian talent agency just own TikTok. I'll just do that, maybe. I don't know.
I still am amazed that they just didn't create any layers of separation between ESL and the Saudi government. Like, why did they think that was going to go over well?
Savvy Games Group is technically one.
Kind of.
Here's the problem, Richard. This is the weirdest thing. They built in the abstraction, like, hey, technically it's the PIF into Savvy Gaming, into ESL Facebook Group, right? Yeah. But then what they did is, then, because people actually would want to buy in, would want to go, like, it is controlled by you guys. Like, they go, no, we're really hands-on, though. Like, even MBS is involved. Well, the abstraction. Why do you say that? Go quiet part out loud. Like, what are we doing? Because they have repeatedly gone out their way to say that part, by the way. Like, it's so weird.
I'll also just add this little crumb into this discussion before we probably move on to the next topic, and that is that you will notice, of course, that now, because Saudi Arabia having the special relationship with America, and bizarrely in my lifetime, Israel checks notes, like what is happening, guys? Like I have gone mad at some point. None of this can be real. It is a simulation. But you will notice because of that, plus their investment into the West in such a broad sense, particularly a lot of American entertainment industry outlets and things like that, there's no concerns around what they might be doing or what their machinations are. Russia, China, we obviously understand, they're the enemy, and we're going to certainly focus on what they're doing to, like, maybe a 70-30 split. And then obviously this state, this sovereign nation that historically has been involved with things that are certainly bad for American society, putting it mildly, we're going to broadly ignore it because they're on the right side of history for now. So, I mean, look, a lot of this is going to play out in a very interesting way across the start of 2025. But if you are a brain rot adult Zoomer watching us, which we know you're not, because our average audience is 65 years old, probably. I don't know. Mine is, right? It's me. I'm the boomer. I'm the oldest. So, the what's going to end up happening is your TikTok is going to come back. Don't be terrified. If you had a really hip Marvel Snap account with all the best cards, it's coming back. There's going to be changes made to the structures of those businesses. How do I know? They're too profitable. They're too important. It's as simple as that. It's like, look, whatever you want to say about the Chinese Communist Party of America and the American government, one thing they will always meet in the middle on is money and the finite
and letting these things die it means that the assets die without, they're willing buyers for these things. So,
yes,
you can get some money out of it, obviously.
I mean, look, and let's not forget, anytime there's a media outlet for sale, everyone just goes, Musk, buy it, like you did with Twitter. He's been linked with MSNBC. Now he's being linked with TikTok. Buy it, Musk, buy it, and then put your shit, opinions and memes on it.
Here's the sad thing. If I had a wish for 2025, I would again solve both these issues. Why can't Elon Musk buy League of Legends? Listen, you are aware, Elon, they have boosting services in League of Legends too. You can have someone pretend you top a challenger in that game, mate. By the way, anyone out there, I'm not even going to claim I've investigated. I've looked in a little bit. If you believe someone got one of the highest ranked accounts in a mega grind game when they're obviously impossible that they could play that much because they're constantly traveling around the world and running
also CEO of multiple companies.
That's an insane mark, because that's not even like he's just a CS player sick game.
But Duncan, this is Grimes said he was really good at Diablo. So
the thing is like the funny thing about these like ARPGs like Diablo and Path of Exile is that it doesn't even matter how good you are, because it's just grinding. It's just the amount you actually have to grind the game.
Monty, the dumbest part is this isn't like I'm just sick at a game but I barely play it. It's like I could only be at this level if I basically only played this game, but I also am famous for doing everything except play this game. It doesn't mean, again, if people just buy that, you just buy it, mate.
Right, and also the grinding gives you the gear. This isn't like he popped in some Quake server and just 1v1 somebody, I'd love to see that, by the way. Him playing a game that wasn't pay to win.
Unfortunately, that is like a slash Twitter opinion, though. Like, I'd love to see Elon Musk play me in Quake 1v1. Like, all right, whatever you say.
Anyway, I do find it hilarious, the scandal, and like people. First off, I don't even understand really how Elon Musk thinks he can get away with this, because it's so fucking obvious he didn't do these things. But he has like a bazillion kids that he allegedly takes care of.
Monty, I'll tell you why. It's because, unfortunately, one area he actually has figured out is that does play into that stupid sort of like conception of him as he is Tony Stark, Iron Man, and he can do everything simultaneously. So people, remember, there are people who do think he's like hyper genius who's doing all these things simultaneously. The saddest part of all, I always say, without going into a big tangent, is I was mega red-pilled on all the Elon Musk stuff 10 years ago because of Lurpis, because famously Lurpis looked into all the stuff with Tesla and PayPal and found out, again, I won't say something now because he'd actually be sued, but let's just say it's not quite as simple as he founded or was ever involved with these companies. There's some really like sort of suspicious things go on there. So believe it or not, way back in the day, I've always told this example as to show how scale and power work. Lurpis basically told me, I actually know that none of these things are what they're presented as, and basically Tesla isn't actually the successful model they claim it's going to fail. So he famously shorted their stock. Now, sadly, that became a meme because the stock did insanely well. So I had to explain to Lurpis, your mistake here, mate, is thinking that he was playing a normal game and you've analysed that he's not good enough at this game. What you didn't realise is he's essentially working with the bank in Monopoly in this equation, and they can't fail, you idiot. Like, in a fucked up way, this like fake thing is going to only scale bigger, and that was ages ago, mate. So I'm actually amazed people really still buy that angle still. It's like 15 years later now.
To a certain degree, it didn't matter about the company because it was a cult of personality and a marketing. It was a marketing triumph, right?
To get all the money for the green electric. Like, again, there's a million levers that don't exist for normal companies on these things. Yeah, of course.
I mean, look, I'll just say this. If people need to know how ham Lurpis went, the only thing I can think of as a comparison is when I was really on my League of Legends / Riot Games bullshit. That he just went crazy on it. It felt like every tweet of his was about.
That's what's so fun about following him on Twitter, though, was it was just a constant Tesla hate. It was very funny.
Like, fucking hell.
But here's the part that's aged very well. At the time, are you ready? You're going to love this, all the people watching, because if you were in esports back then, you're getting called out now. Every single person in the scene didn't even listen to a single thing he was saying or read the things he was linking. They just went, I guess he just hates Tesla cars, and they for real kept saying to him, bro, have you driven one though? Have you driven one though? But have you seen how it drives? And even better, this is the detail you all like to memory hole, like 1984. You all loved Elon Musk. You all thought he was a genius. You all thought he was Iron Man. And if you're left wing, he was your favorite guy who was going to save the world and make you a colony on Mars. Now, how is that aged, dickhead? Oh, not very well, has it? All you need to know is
Mars colonization.
All you need to know when a 15-year-old tweet from Lurpis becomes completely on the nose, you fucked up. You picked the wrong side, didn't you? You've made that age incredibly well. At the time, everyone thought he was an idiot. Everyone was against it, believe it or not. It was true. That was how it was.
Is it possible to be a genius and a retard at the same time? That's
These
the
are the
real
questions
question
of our age.
That is the philosophical question.
I literally think then I'm only half joking here, by the way. I literally think someone that understands the inner workings of the human mind, some sort of psychological, psychiatric expert, also probably would help if you had some anthropological fucking background and something else, maybe a sociologist as well. Get them all together, get a round table. That question has to be answered.
So, Richard, I think the real problem. The real problem with the tech bros is that they're like really good at very certain things, and when they get billions of dollars from being good at those certain things, they just suddenly think that they're also good at literally everything else.
Yeah, we call that the Mark Cuban effect.
Yeah.
We call that the Mark Cuban effect. Mark Cuban did well with like some businesses, investment banking, thinks he can just slide into any business, no matter the specificity or qualifications required, voice an opinion, and everyone goes, "Well, you do own a basketball team.
Not
So
anymore.
I should listen to you." You know, it's what makes me laugh when people say, in Trump's America, you've got the death of expertise. It's like, guys, in modern America, you've been listening to people based on their bank balance talk shite about things they have no conceptualization of, simply because maybe they have a nice demeanor, maybe they're good on camera, maybe they're mega wealthy. Well, he's been successful in one line of work, so maybe he'll be successful in this line of work.
This person can sing or act good, therefore they have great political opinions.
Yeah, perfect.
They will solve our social problems.
Yeah.
Listen, the word said against Ron Perlman's Twitter account. It's always been straight fire, and he's always nailed it.
Yeah, do you remember that tweet?
He has some of his about Trump and some of the best tweets I've ever seen.
His all-time best tweet is the one where he said, "Had to meet Donald Trump at a gala." Right?
I know this one. Yeah.
Went quickly
Listen
went
to this
to the toilet. Quickly went to the toilet and pissed all over my hands before shaking hands with him. How do you like that, Donny PP hands?
Two things. One, it's mental because you imply you pissed on your own hands. But secondly, and you have to be actually from our generation to get this, he actually claims to have attempted to pull that move from Mallrats where you do like the stink hat palm or whatever on Trump. Like that is the maddest. I agree, it's the maddest tweet of all time. It's the idea that like the black collar in Magic, he understood he had to take damage himself to do damage to the enemy. I appreciate that in a fucked up way. You know what I mean?
It's so mental. It's actually mental because if you just type in Ron Perlman pissed on his hands into Google, right? All of the publications that picked it up are all like it's a great thing. Like it's a great thing.
I just appreciate that he had that,
on top of on Perlman's side.
I think the funniest part of that is that on top of everything else, he just has to add Donnie PP hands at the end.
I know.
It's so unnecessary.
The thing is, I can tell, no joke, that he thinks he's doing what Trump does, where you come up with like a pithy nickname for someone that's going to take off. I bet he thought that would become like the new thing. Or something,
wait. I've done that thing where I've gone through the looking glass. He was arguing with Donald Trump Jr. about it. But it was Harvey Weinstein whose hands he pissed on.
Right, okay, fair enough.
There you go. I did that thing where it was the Mandela effect, guys. Okay. Sorry. But
he did come to piss on his hands though and shake someone's hand. I know, yeah, true.
Which it's marginally better that it's Harvey Weinstein.
It definitely is marginally better.
Yeah.
But I still want to point out that Ron Perlman pissed on his own hands to shake someone's hands he didn't like, so they got piss on their hands. I don't know. But there you go. It was Harvey Weinstein the whole time. Which, by the way, that saying, evergreen.
All right. Let's talk about some of the state of LFN stuff. We do have another sponsor for you guys, though. It is, of course, Raycon. They're back, baby. Shout out to Raycon, by the way, getting me through my flight from the States back to Korea after the holidays. I told this story on Summoning Insight as well, but I can confirm that the active noise cancellation works very well because I was the guy with the baby on the plane.
You were the asshole.
Well,
no, it's even worse, Richard. He was the guy with the baby, and he then used his own noise cancelling tech to not have to be, and everyone else got annoyed. So the joke, as I've said on the past ad we did, was that's why everyone else on that flight should get Raycon AirPods. Exactly, Monty.
I can confirm if the baby is right next to you, it is very difficult to hear the baby, but very easy for me to hear the audiobook I was listening to.
Have you ever seen that Reddit story about James Corden? Where it was like, I saw James Corden on a long flight and he came onto the plane and unfortunately had to sit in like coach with everyone else. And there was a woman sat next to him with a baby and the baby was crying the entire time and he asked to be moved. And they said, there's no seats. It's a full flight, sir. Sorry. And he sat there. And then like at the end of and he was very good and very patient and he just ignored them the entire time and just sat there. He looked angry, but he just coped with it. And then at the end of the flight, like he went to get up and he even helped the woman get down her bag from the top thing, and then it turned out it was his wife and kid. It was his whole wife and kid the whole time. That's Monty now. Christopher Corden is here. He is upon us.
My baby was actually very good because I pay attention to him on the flight, even in hour 11 when I want to die.
Jeez.
So, you know.
This is a commercial for Raycon earbuds not having babies. So
I love my kids.
Let's take. Yeah, exactly.
I love my kids.
Are we still doing the condom sponsor as well? Because that would be a really good fucking one.
No. And these are great, but they do come with active noise cancellation. As I said, it's often difficult to find at an accessible price point. And these start at just half the price as other premium audio brands. They also have multi-point connectivity, so you can pair them with two devices at the same time. They have a 32-hour battery life. I've never had these run out of batteries. Plus, they can recharge in their case, obviously, and they have quick charge systems. So it has been really great. I've used them extensively myself. They come in a variety of, I would say, more unusual colors besides the black ones that I have here. If you're into that kind of thing, they will have those options for you. And you can get 15% off site-wide at buyraycon.com/horsemen, because we're more than one horseman, so it's MEN. That's 15% off at buyraycon.com/horsemen. buyraycon.com/horsemen. Thank you very much to Raycon.
Collectively, our pronouns are indeed they.
That's right.
Whatever. So I'm selected now. These jokes are back on the menu, guys.
Yeah, they're back.
That's right.
They're back. We're back. We're back.
No one can say anything because all the people who used to get mad at us now work for the Saudi government. So
exactly, we win. We played.
Well, by the way, there's one thing I've mentioned in the past, though, that I actually do want to reference before we leave that topic completely about the Tencent thing. This is why I found it so incredibly annoying that there's this weird group of people, right? I thought there was just two groups of people. The division went like this. You either are in favor of the Saudis buying into and operating esports stuff, or you're not. There's a third group who don't give a flying fuck who owns what, but they're really angry that we are correctly, factually, and justifiably calling out the people who are hypocrites for working with the Saudis. That's their only position. They're not against the Saudis. They're not for the Saudis. They're just annoyed that we're calling it out. And their only tool, Rich will know this, is whataboutism. So famously, in Counter-Strike, where they don't know about League and Tencent, they just say, but what about the time the US Army sponsored the US? They do that thing as if, again, the US Army / the US government actually like owned or operated like fucking the tournament, which obviously they never came close to. That's a ridiculous equivalence, right? And then similarly, in League, the same people would be like, oh, over in CS, you've got all that Saudi stuff. Thankfully, here in League of Legends, we don't have that. Yeah, it just turns out the whole time you were an actual adjunct to the military apparatus of the fucking Chinese Communist Party and state. That is who you were the whole time, my dude. So you know what? Here's a little detail for you. You know, back in the day when Riot used to actually pay the pro players their salaries, that means essentially the Chinese government on some level was overseeing the paying of Western professional League of Legends players. So again, I don't really think that is actually some like normal situation. That seems pretty extreme to me. So similarly, if you believe, for example, that someone following Thorin on Twitter means you agree with all of his opinions and takes, then logically you agree with all the opinions of the Chinese military and state. Like, seems like kind of a crazy angle, but you guys set that standard, not me.
My other favorite whataboutism is people will say, well, why don't you criticize the Chinese government that owns Riot? Well, first off, the Chinese government doesn't. They're actually owned by a publicly traded company. And yes, by the way, guys, if anybody has complained about the Chinese connections with Riot, it's been us, by the way. It's not like we haven't mentioned it.
Yep.
we did it on this podcast. Why is that problematic? Because obviously the Chinese government is an authoritarian piece of shit that oppresses people like the Uyghurs. We don't like that either. And we have talked about that. We have talked about that.
Absolutely,
so it's like people, what I love is people use whataboutism. Like, why aren't you talking about this stuff without knowing or even looking to see if we actually have talked about it? Which we have.
It's also mental that they ever imply it to Richard, because he's probably the only person I'm aware of who's really famous in esports who has continually talked about the Uyghurs. Yeah. I'm aware of almost no one else.
Also pushing the Hong Kong thing, which you all forgot about. Remember how free Hong Kong was a fucking hashtag for a week?
And remember how I was the only one to talk about how when the free Hong Kong thing happened in esports, that what Riot Games did was their next Worlds after that happened was in China, and they put the entire broadcast on a 5-minute delay so that if anybody said free Hong Kong, they would just cut the feed before it reached anybody.
Yep.
So there you go.
Guys, we try. It's very hard. Like, obviously, you're not going to be on the right side on every topic, and sometimes there are even going to be inconsistencies and idiosyncrasies within your own logic. That's just the nature of being human. Some issues and topics resonate more with you than other topics, and sometimes you can't see the to have the necessary levels of empathy and understanding to be sympathetic to one cause over another. That's all fine. And all we want to do is just hold that mirror up and just say, you have said this about this group, and you have broadly attacked us for views that we don't even hold, that you deem to be reprehensible. But now you are aligned on a financial and business level with an entity that absolutely, inarguably holds the views you ascribe to us. So what up with that? And that's it. And that's why they hate it. It's not so much that they hate the fact that they're being called out for being hypocrites. That that's going to happen from time to time as a public figure. Most people have a thick enough skin for that. They don't even hate the fact that the Saudi Arabian government are doing those things. They don't care. They don't give a fuck about that. But what they absolutely do give a fuck about is when suddenly one fucking cluster of villains is allowed to have the moral high ground and the moral superiority over them. Oh, they fucking hate that.
I actually did reference this one time, by the way, in one of my petty grievances, where I just said they accidentally did the Norm Macdonald meme. If people don't know the meme, essentially is the idea of like his biggest fear, Monty,
dirty bomb went off over LA.
Went off and killed millions of Americans is like by Islamic terrorists. What would the like judgment of Islamic people be? Well, the joke of the meme there, Monty, is the bigger concern should be the bomb killing all the people, obviously not like what the media backlash. So they did the meme, right? Because the joke is, I've actually seen this tweet before. There are people, Monty, who said that the worst thing about the Saudi Arabian involvement in esports is that people like Richard Lewis and Thorin get to be right about it. And it's like, no, the worst part is where they cut the people's heads off and put them in prison. You've got the part where he's wrong,
A better example, still using Norm Macdonald, was when he was on the Seinfeld show, Comedians Get Coffee or whatever it was. And they're talking about Bill Cosby, and Seinfeld goes to Norm Macdonald. He goes, that's the thing with Bill Cosby. I think the worst part about it was the hypocrisy. And Norm Macdonald goes, I think it was the rapes. So, it just, Seinfeld just cracks up because obviously, that is. But it's that glib thing people say. People become frivolous because ultimately you are detached from the horror of whatever it is that you're talking about, and what you're connected to is this little sociological kind of connectivity with other people in your space and their opinions and their behaviors. You can relate to that. You can engage with that. You can't engage with what the people were doing. That was horrifying and evil. So, I mean, look, that's to put a pin in it, that we've been pretty consistent across the board. I get called a Zionist these days. Apparently, I'm not sympathetic enough on Palestine.
By the way, I'll tell you what would prove otherwise, and if this ever happens, it's very unlikely, obviously. Spoiler, if Israel had control of a video game or tournament organizer, Richard would talk about that too. By the way, if the UK did, that's the dumbest part about it.
It's always done it over Denmark with Blast.
It's always a moron who doesn't seem to know us, who tells us what our opinions about other stuff they don't know about are. Like, I think we've actually been fairly consistent, like you said, over on this topic, even though, by the way, it is almost impossible to be consistent. As you just point out, you can't know every cause, can you? No one can.
On my Substack annual summary of the esports year, every year I give a word to the esports year. That's been, so like 2022 was year of the scumbags. That's when Bobby Kotick was on his bullshit and stuff. So 2024 was the year of the sellout, and I talk about how like we've essentially become a governmental plaything. Like, even more broadly than football or any other popular sport. I mean, sports and politics will always intersect because of the bread and circuses paradigm. That's just the reality of it. But I mean, we've become now the underwriters of esports are governments. You know, when you've got the Danish government fucking with PGL in Denmark because they're a competitor in a stadium that that Blast operate at traditionally, putting on a better show, and they literally send government representatives to the event to tell them, you better not show that sponsor and you better not show that sponsor. And what up with Russians competing here when the Danish Minister of Culture went to a Blast event prior to that and literally introduced Russian players on stage? You know, so it's like no good comes of being an off ramp of government. And the Danish government, what have they ever fucking done? You know what I mean? Like, it's a big scandal if someone gets caught drink driving over there. Yeah. That's like 101 for Americans. You have to do that before you even get invited to Epstein's Island. So, you know, it's like no good comes of being adjacent to any government. I don't want governmental control over esports. Right. Like, I liked it when we were a bunch of fucking peaceniks smoking weed, watching video games, making just enough money to fucking counterculture and do it again. It was counterculture. Yeah, exactly. Now it certainly is not counterculture. It was the one thing I didn't anticipate. You know, it's the one thing I feel guilty about in terms of my contribution to esports. I was one of the people steering us towards, no, Thorin, look, there's a lighthouse. We certainly will. The lighthouse of the mainstream. We'll never hit these rocks. Don't worry about it. I'm feeling invincible. And yeah, we went into the rocks and now we're trash and now we're garbage, and I helped get us there, you know, like,
well, so. but this is, you know, this is
you live and you learn.
When we talk about the state of Last Free Nation, I mean, this is kind of what we stand for, guys, because this all goes back to some very pivotal things that happened in the early days of when we founded this company in 2022. Is that, you know, first off, we suffered from basically the collapse of the venture capital markets because we obviously didn't get funding when we thought we would, even though we are a media company and typically media companies don't receive venture capital, or it's a lot harder. It became basically
we were offered funding. I mean,
we're getting to that. But I mean, like, the venture capital market, not from venture capital in the traditional way. I mean, we thought we had a deal, you know, lined up, and unfortunately, because people moved their money, rich people moved their money out of VC in 2022. Nobody was actually getting money out of VC in 2022, much less us, because, again, we were a media company. There's kind of, obviously, like, having the next Uber app can make you a lot more money than a media company, which is why they tend to, you know, invest in tech companies or things that have, like, bigger home run potential, even though obviously our floor was much higher because we had, you know, large viewership and podcast companies kind of have known revenue. And to Richard's point, we did actually have some money set up for funding because Faceit wanted to invest in us. But then what happened was that was prior to the acquisition by the Saudi government. And then the acquisition by the Saudi government happened, and we decided not to basically take that money. But I mean, we had talked to Faceit pretty extensively before that time, and I was totally down to do it because I like Faceit as a company, but under the new ownership structure, that was not really going to be on the table.
We would have been part of the Death Star. We would have been out there creating podcast content where it's like, and today's sponsor, well, bloody hell, it's Mohammed bin Salman again. You know, inshallah, the Crown Prince. Like, that's what we would have been doing. That's what we would have been doing.
So we're glad things happened the way it did, but it did make for...
I mean, we would have been millionaires for doing it. I want to make that part clear as well. You wouldn't understand how much money
Richard,
we
just delayed being millionaires. Don't worry about it.
Wiping the tears with the hundreds. Oh, I still have my integrity. Was so
bloody
terrible.
Hell. Someone on Reddit, Elite Sniper Wolf 420 on Reddit, is calling me a hypocrite. Bloody hell. But, you know, me personally, I just didn't have it in me. You know?
Yeah. Obviously. It's fine. We're glad we took our own way. But so you guys know, you know, we're still owned by the talent. We didn't take any kind of investment. And even though this has been the harder path, especially because, you know, I didn't know how to run a podcast company 2.5 years ago. I do know now how to do it. You know, I had to learn it. I had some help with some extremely great advisors who were very instrumental to helping build our business.
Step 1, walk away from millions. Step 2, pray for more millions.
But the thing about the podcast advertising business is that it tends to move very slowly because you have to do a test with a company, and what they do is they come in and they say, well, you know, we're going to buy one ad on one show one ad per month on one show for 3 months. And if it goes well, then we're going to start to buy more. And then if that goes well, then we'll start to go out to your other shows and buy ads on those. So it just takes time for it to kind of, for brands to trust you. And you guys and your support of our sponsors has been absolutely instrumental to the growth of LFN. And,
absolutely.
you know, just so you guys are aware, Thorin and I have we have taken very little money out of this company, and the vast majority of the revenue has gone to the other talent that we have. We put them first very deliberately, and I think this year 2025 is going to be extremely good for us at LFN because of the spot we're in right now with our advertising partners and everything like that. But it took a long time to get here. And we're trying to do other things too, because we appreciate your direct support, like rebuilding the website to provide. We didn't want to provide 1 million Patreons, guys, for like each individual podcast. We wanted to do it as a brand so that we can have one subscription for all of our content. We can do more, you know, Q&As, other paywalled content that, you know, everything that's free right now will still be free. But we want to provide additional value to you guys who are our Discord subscribers right now. That will change and become better. We want to launch our own merchandise this year. We've already started that process. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff coming up. And, you know, frankly, we want to expand into other esports. We want to expand into other non-esports areas as well that we haven't had the time to do. And you know, I talked about on SI how I need to take a step back from being involved in the day-to-day of League of Legends because it was basically taking 40 hours of my week to watch VODs and be an expert on the game from all these games from around the world. And the problem is that I can't do that and take care of my family and take care of this business at the same time. And people ask the I think legitimate question. Well, Monty, why do you have to do that? Why can't you just hire somebody to take control of the business instead of doing the League of Legends stuff? And I said, you know, my answer to that is this, which is that there is nobody who, first off, can do the business end as well as I can because I am literally the only person on earth who knows the podcast business in esports. I'm the only person. And secondly, because I am going to take far less money to run the business than any CEO we could hire for this company.
I always say we're essentially now operating like it's a startup. What we're doing it like you're doing a startup is the founders, ideally, if they're programmers and stuff, use their labor in the short term without asking a massive salary because it's a startup and they have equity. So yeah, we're doing that at the moment, basically.
Like basically my pay for this year, guys, is going to be the scraps that are left over when we pay everybody else. Okay. So like no one else is going to take that deal. Effectively, who is an expert who can do these things. And because it has now taken me a couple of years to get into a position where I can command the business side of things, that's the problem, is that people view it from the outside as me being irreplaceable on the League of Legends talent front. But the reality is that even if those shows take a hit from me not being on them, my ability to expand the network by having more time to get more talent from other games and start those projects up, combined with, frankly, me just working on more business stuff is going to lead, we think it's going to lead to more money, right? To offset, you know, potential. And honestly, I'm not even sure that the viewership will be affected because we already started experimenting with me not being on League of Legends shows last year and the viewership didn't move, guys. It didn't fucking move. So I'm not even sure it is going to affect anything. Or the effect, we don't know how big the effect is going to be. So the other aspects of this is that I'm not stopping doing this show. We're going to increase frequency of this show because I can do this without having to watch 40 hours of League of Legends a week, right? I can pay attention to esports.
Who the fuck wants to watch 40 hours of League of Legends a week? By the way?
Not me, Richard, is the answer.
Who the fuck? Like, here's the aspect to that. Like, I mean, honestly, like, and for what?
Well, I mean,
you know,
there were good reasons to do it in the past, including my own enjoyment.
When you're being hired to share your expertise and that kind of stuff, yeah.
Well, no, or to build the company, and it's not like I dislike esports or dislike analysis. I chose that career for a reason. But it was also, Richard, it was also really fucking up my personal life. So, for example, you know, my kids are off on the weekend, but basically on Sundays, I had to spend my entire day streaming League of Legends analysis and watching VODs because I had shows starting first thing Monday morning where I had to watch, you know, I had to be updated on these games. And then I had shows every week. And it's not really an option for me to just do one show because the same amount of research goes into that one show. In fact, it was much more efficient for me to do like 4 shows when I was doing all this work because, you know, I'm already doing that 40 hours. So fuck it. What's another 3 hours? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this also is going to free me up. Like there are certain things to your guys' point about the media, and we will talk about the media in esports and how thin it is getting. But, you know, we need to move into general gaming. Right. I want to do content on game releases. And the problem with games journalism I mean, I'm sure you guys know a million problems with game journalism. But one problem with games journalism is that access journalism has effectively crippled game criticism. Because if you are an IGN or a PC gamer, you cannot give a AAA game a bad review because then the publisher or the developer, whether it's Ubisoft or Activision Blizzard or Microsoft or BioWare, whoever, will cut off your access to, well, we're putting this new class in our game, guys, and you're going to get some, you know, hands-on experience playing this new class. And that is where they actually make their money, is breaking all these little stories, right? And so the problem is that it has created very, in my mind, perverse incentives for games journalism. And the other side of that coin is that there are a bunch of like reaction game channels that are just against everything that the devs are doing. It's like anything that they do, it's just some sort of violent reaction, like angry reaction to that, or it's some sort of scandal in some way. And I think that is very boring as well. And so I think there's a lot of room for LFN to have intelligent conversations about games and which games are good. And, you know, I care very much about games as art and good writing and indie titles and stuff that a lot of people don't pay attention to, that I'm very interested in. We also have more stuff we want to do on the Culture Channel. People have been begging for us to do an NFL show. Guys, I can't do an NFL show during Worlds. You know what I mean? Like that was not possible previously. And maybe this coming year it will be. Right, I'd be interested in doing some shit.
I'm glad we didn't do an NFL show this fucking season as a Raiders fan. So I would have just
man, I got some thoughts on the playoff games that happened today. But you know, I think we could create a fire NFL show that wouldn't.
The Chiefs.
Fuck the Chiefs, exactly. That wouldn't. You know, I think our NFL show, it wouldn't be the world's sickest analysis because none of us are NFL experts. But I absolutely can. All of us can break through the narrative bullshit that surrounds these games. And provide interesting historical parallels or ideas and stuff like that. Like, I think for example, I was watching the Lions Commanders game today, and I tweeted this out, but I was like, has there ever been a game in NFL history where a team scored 31 points with a -5 turnover differential? And the answer is no, by the way, which is honestly kind of a testament to the Lions offense despite all of the turnovers, right? It was a very weird game. And I think there are really cool talking points like that could be brought up, but nobody's doing it. So yes, I am interested potentially in doing some NFL content. You know, Thorin and I have floated the idea of doing our graphic novel show that we've wanted to do for a long time. But there's all this stuff.
Got a working title for that one?
No. You have an idea for us?
No. Just obviously, usually Duncan's very good conceptually.
I thought you had something clever. Fuck, man.
So I thought it would be,
to do like that. We haven't done that yet.
Okay.
But anyway, there are all these things we want to do, guys, and it's been very hard because I can't have the conversations with other people in other games. Like, we want to start Dota content. We want to start FGC content. I'm talking with these people now, but I haven't had the time to do all of these things previously. And that has made it very hard to, you know, our numbers are great, but it's made it hard to really focus on expansion. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, guys, is we just need to get bigger to keep growing the company and to get involved in more scenes, bring more interesting people on board who then we can get involved in the NFL or the culture content or whatever, right? Because part of the underlying thesis of LFN is we want to take all these esports people who have this incredible ability to be entertaining and insightful, unscripted, and then place them into other things, non-esports things that they are passionate about, and then grow that audience as well. because frankly, like TV and film has a much bigger audience ceiling than esports. General gaming has a much bigger audience ceiling than esports. And the Culture channel has been our fastest growing channel since we launched it. So I think this stuff kind of proves itself.
Let's hope we survive the Gladiator 2 episode. Let's hope. That doesn't tank us forever.
Richard's mentioning that we actually have 3 of the 4 episodes of the next arc already recorded. Yeah. So you guys haven't even started seeing the first one of that arc yet, but the next one we're finishing up that arc this week, and it might be a rough one.
God, it's so bad. And I have to watch it again. I have to watch a movie twice. I pledged in the cinema in Romania I will never watch this again. And then we just didn't record it. But that was my bad, so whatever. I've done it to myself. It's my punishment for going out drinking instead of recording content.
That's fine.
So,
I mean, you get double punished, I guess. The Hangover and the second viewing of Gladiator 2.
Really bad. Really bad.
So anyway, guys, that's kind of where we're at with LFN right now and why things are happening the way they are. And I understand, obviously, that people are disappointed in some of the change in the direction. It's obviously very bittersweet for me doing Summoning Insight for 12 years to stop doing it. But I hope that this is the right move, right? No way to know.
Just to be an arsehole, I'll pretend like I agree with Mark Merrill and Riot, and esports will definitely be League of Legends for 10, 15, 20 years. So what's good is, Monty, when the kids are grown, we can just come back and keep doing it again. So no problem. See you in about 8 years. They're off to school. Don't worry about it.
When they're playing, of course, when they've played through high school, they've got their college scholarships in League of Legends, right?
Well, listen,
Riot at the time probably have the number 1 anime in the world, Meeches, Furfest, Bugfest 24, Pool Skin, that'll be the biggest skin in the world. As an animation where he licks his own ass or someone else's ass, if there's another furry on the screen.
All the asses. No, but it's like it's why in many ways, it was so good of Mark Merrill to create Whole Cloth, another industry. In the form of animation for adults that we could talk about. I mean,
also Mark Merrill,
he has made everything we love: esports, anime.
Also, Mark Merrill was later heard saying that it's great
sexual harassment. That's a joke.
It was great that League of Legends exists because no one had made a MOBA previously. No one had thought.
That would be good. The joke is, at this point in time, they actually almost should just lean into it, Richard. Like, he should just do the Bill Hicks and go. Thing is, actually, daughter copied from me. The just annoying thing is, they just did it all first.
Exactly.
Version of the Bill Hicks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, obviously, what they do in North Korea, where it's like fucking, glorious leader invented the light bulb and all of that shit. Glorious leader. Mark Merrill got a hole-in-one the first time he ever played golf. Just stories like that.
Well, I do want to talk about the importance of LFN in the current esports media landscape.
This is something Duncan wanted to bring to the table. We've all kind of done our own little bits and pieces. So Duncan, and I got some stuff for this. Obviously, broadly speaking, the games media, and it's certainly its offshoot, its redheaded stepchild, the fucking esports media. I mean, it is dire where we're all at right now.
I think people know that in the bigger landscape that the mega sites died out. There are no like Yahoo Esports, ESPN. Those things died out. People get that the mega projects died out. What they don't seem to appreciate is actually the scene me and Richard came from of small Counter-Strike sites where you'd have, back in the day it was Read More, but there was the 99 Damage one for the German Counter-Strike scene. Obviously Dust 2 wasn't just US. If you don't know, they had like a US, a Denmark. They had a whole bunch of them that were around for different spaces. And you do a Brazilian one. Loads of these sites basically are dying off or dying out of. And so it's not just like one and one has problems. This is clearly another industry thing where people there's no money to invest into media companies. Nobody wants to own them, and they're not seen as valuable assets right now. And so a lot of them aren't even just struggling. They're just they've shut their doors already. And so it means that, for example, in Counter-Strike, you really are in a position where I'm not trolling. All you have is HLTV.org and then people who are like leakers on Twitter. character. That's all we've got left. I mean, I'd even argue in League of Legends. At this point in time, League of Legends got ahead of us. Cheap esports is the only source of fucking news at this point in time. Like, that's the world. There are no Jacob Wolfs, guys. Like, the joke is, you're actually, if that fucking Michael Clementov or whatever does something, that's actually at least something vaguely independent. Like, the media landscape is completely barren right now. It is wild. Like, it's never been as bad as it is now. This is worse now, no joke, than in the early 2000s when there was no money in it. There was more sites than this. It's insanity.
Well, this is the key. This is the key aspect of it. That now, if you, and by the way, this is happening in real media. Not by that I mean non-esports media. It's not real. These are all hacks generally. But obviously, as someone that talks a lot about American politics in my content, but not really just the politics, more how the media intersects with the politics. What's happening now is everyone's realized that if you want to command a 6-figure salary and live in a mega expensive coastal city in America, it's not really viable unless you are the hot shit. And unfortunately, when your opinion is pretty much in line with every other columnist and politico in America, which is, why Donald Trump is the worst thing ever for the millionth time. Donald Trump said this. If we take it literally and spin it in the most uncharitable way possible, it sounds like Mussolini. This game that they've been playing for 10 years. The American people are just bored of it and tired of it. And there was a large subset of people that would never subscribe to it. It's one of the reasons why I've used this example many times. When I studied journalism, one of the things we did when we had to do our media literacy and we had to understand, what a chyron was and all the different framings of all the different news networks, we all sat there and belly laughed at Fox News. They put fucking Hannity on there or whoever it would have been at the time. And we all just sat there like, oh, fucking hell, this is what passes for news in America. And then we would see something somber by contrast, like CNN lauded for the first ever 24-hour news channel. And then fast forward to where we're at now, and everything is Fox News because that's what worked. And as soon as you sign over a newsroom to corporate interests and you need clicks and you need money and you've got to hit your ads and you've got to do this, it's like, look, we all laugh at Tucker Carlson using as a defense. I just play a character. No one would believe me. Rachel Maddow invoked the same defense. And I've said this for years. MSNBC goes further than Fox almost ever did, except maybe in the Obama years, in Obama's first term, where Obama wearing like a tan suit and holding a cup of coffee while he saluted a Marine was a national crisis because Fox News was stupid. So, look, what's happening now is all of these hacks that were at those big media companies, they can't command a salary anymore. They're deemed to be almost like a toxic asset by the news networks. Guess what they're doing? After maligning Substack and calling people, oh, you're a Substack man. Oh, Substack, a right-wing hotbed of bigotry. What next? A Rumble channel. Well, after doing all of that game, they're now moving to Substack en masse. It's happening. Chris Saliza has done this. I mean, I had to laugh. Jen fucking Rubin, who between drinking box wine and luckily finding a Xanax in her handbag, she said she's moving to Substack now to create her own publication. The kicker is the name, The Contrarian.
That's amazing.
I know. There's nothing contrarian about anything you've said about for the past decade. What are you talking about? So anyway, who's going to pay for this stuff? And what they're banking on is that their names are big enough to command a subscription. And this is what is now happening in esports, that the actual journalists capable of doing real news and having a following and putting out opinions that people like, they're moving to independent publications. And so, well, you've got two choices. It's like that meme where you're staring at the road. One is a dark path and you become Jake Lucky and you just tweet out screenshots of things that you saw on fucking live stream fails that day. Or you can go and create a Substack and actually do your own reporting over there. The problem is one of those things gets access and clicks and attention, and the other, by and large, doesn't, because we don't do a good job of promoting these things. In fact, with the advent of the Savvy Games Group and all of that stuff coming in, they're actively blacklisting and shutting down publications, and at the same time, buying publications. This is another aspect to the paradigm. Rolling Stone, paid for entirely by Savvy Games. You know, their gaming and esports outlet. Every week, a new fluff piece. Why? Craig Torbell Levine is the greatest of all time. They even in one article called ESL a plucky upstart that went from like rags to riches. Like one of the most poisonous,
maybe
monopolistic...
15 years ago.
I mean, it's technically we all started from there. It's like saying how Thorin was once a collection of atoms floating through the universe to now the most hated man on Twitter. You know, it's like it's just fucking crazy. It's just stupid framing. You know. So anyway, all of which is to say that right now, independent media, it's got an opportunity. But it's very hard to realize it because not everybody can just hang in the pocket and think they make money. I understand I'm in a very blessed position because, you know, I'm literally looking at the data now in front of me. I have 12,000 subscribers on my Substack, and 1,500 of those are paying $5 or above. A lot of people have bought the year package. And even though that's kind of like not insane numbers, it was enough to constitute me getting a Substack bestseller badge. And we are still trending upwards, despite the fact we've come out of a period where I didn't do a lot of content because I was working the major. So, you know, if I could live just off that, if I never did another YouTube or another Twitch stream, worked another event, you know, I could live off what I make from that. But like, not everyone is in that lucky position, and it's why I'm super grateful to my community. But you know, like talking about Clementov, you know, he's got his publication, which his gamer handle is Leadergrev. He calls it Readergrev, his Substack. He's done some wicked stories. I mean, look, not everything he does over there is wicked. He did an interview with Ryan Friend, fucking formerly of Rush B Media, but to be fair, he actually showed signs of self-awareness in there. So who knows? You know, up is down and black is white right now, I guess. But you know, but like he's done some really good stories. Do they get enough attention? Who's sharing these? Why aren't these going out on social media? Very often now it feels like social media is almost designed as an antithesis of what it used to be. Social media used to be really good at helping people blow up and get their stuff noticed. Now moderators decide if you're not from one of the established websites, we're just not going to allow your stuff on there. Because it could, you know, we can't verify it's for, you know, whether it's true or not. You were never meant to do that. You're moderators. You know, my Substack stuff, every time it's submitted to the CSGO subreddit, it sits in purgatory because occasionally I have a paywalled article. And so they go, well, we don't allow paywalls. But that article isn't paywalled. Yeah, but it's on a website that has paywalls. So my stuff doesn't even get onto the CS subreddit right now. Think about that. You know, and then like last year, it wasn't my best year for breaking stories. I mean, I kind of can't be asked anymore. I'll be real with you. I'd rather write opinion, rather talk about politics, rather just laugh at the fucking comedic state of esports. People want to pay for that. That's fine. If they don't, they'll let me know by unsubscribing. But, you know, ultimately, I did break some big stories and, you know, stories that didn't get a lot of attention because by the time a mod had gone, okay, we'll allow that one to be submitted, somebody else had got hold of it or whatever. So it's like the sad irony is that if I was to recommend to anyone, if you want to model someone, like, do you want to be like formerly a Jacob Wolf who tried a Substack, right? Or a Kevin Haight or a James Fudge or a Mykles Clementov? If you wanted to be any of those guys, well, you better have some insane following from something else. You better have like a big YouTube channel already, you know, or you better be popular in another field. Because otherwise, the thing to do is turn on monetization on Twitter and just pump out vacuous fucking nonsense. Mm-hmm. Because if you do that, then you're going to get more attention and more money.
I hope people understand, if someone's a casual, I'll briefly break it down. This isn't just like some sort of elitism or gatekeeping that we're implying, like Jake Lucky being your main news source. Because I'm sorry, if I had to actually explain, in League of Legends, the main news source of roster moves is Sheep Esports, but at least I'll say this, they do have some journalists that at least know some concepts of journalistic ethics and what you do and protocol stuff. Jake Lucky not only has none, seems to know none, he actively will tell you, I'm not a journalist, even though, by the way, sorry, dickhead, like Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart, you don't get to play that game when you clearly are LARPing as a journalist, and the whole joke is you're not just making jokes, you're saying the truth because you're not a journalist but pretending to be one, right? You're not even doing that. All he really does is, the reason he says he's not a journalist, guys, is because he is so routinely wrong and publishes completely false nonsense information he hasn't vetted, that's the only way he hasn't completely destroyed any credibility he has. Like, nobody has published more misinformation information to more people in the history of esports journalism than Jake Lucky on his Twitter account. And that is now, unironically, the #1 source of news in gaming and esports, our cross-section of the space,
Not only that, but he's obviously taking outside money.
Even, by the way, he has been told 1,000,000 times by the journalists, you just put #ad like Thorin does every time he does a betting sponsor post. Jake Lucky clearly knows that and intentionally refuses to do it. So he is also, by the way, pretending posts aren't ads knowingly. So I don't care what this person's excuse is. That is not an acceptable or in any way ideal scenario for the main journalistic person to be someone who says, I'm not a journalist. Now here's any old shite I saw on livestream fails 4chan or elsewhere on Twitter with no vetting. I'm just going to publish it on my account. And then if it goes wrong, sorry, and then just delete the tweet. Like that cannot be. You can think whatever you want about Richard. He is 1 billion times better than that, no matter what you think about any political angle you can imagine. It's insane. That's what
also, Jake Lucky is very clearly at minimum getting fully paid trips to Riyadh to work on the Esports World Cup, but probably getting paid tens of thousands of dollars to do these things. Like he gets paid to go to events to tweet about them.
I'll give you an example. The same Jake Lucky that has no opinion about Saudi Arabia and their regime literally cutting people's heads off during the same months that they have awards for Journalist of the Year and have tournaments. He's the person going, who hurt Thorin? Who hurt everyone in esports that they have people cutting people's heads off, paying them and lining their pockets? And as Monty just aligned, you, bro. How about you? Why do you work with people who behead people, dickhead? I just say things on Twitter. You actually work with real life murderers, bro. That's the fucking standards. And by the way, which one do you think, guys, is the reviled journalist that begrudgingly people accept the news from? Is it Richard Lewis, 20-year veteran of the industry, multiple times winner, actually even works as an actual real life professor of journalism, all that? Is it him, or is it Jake Lucky, the person I just said has zero standards, works with the most evil people in the world, and actually publishes any old shite that comes across his way? Which one do you think is like embraced and people ignore all the bad parts, and which one is reviled and begrudgingly you accept? You know the answer because you're in the upside fucking down right now, mate. Somehow it is the wrong way around on that one. It's actually mad, isn't it? It's so fucking mad. It's so mad.
I mean, to be fair as well, I did see an incredible take of his because it related to Counter-Strike. And by the way, I don't want to make this a Jake Lucky bashing session.
Oh, no.
I mean, what the fuck even is
he's just the poster boy of this topic is the thing. Yeah.
No, you're right. He's blue steel for shit journalism. Yeah, you're right. But anyway, he did a tweet where it was like, the Mongols had announced that they weren't attending the Blast Bounty, and it was because like one of their players had a broken arm, and obviously they would have had to use a stand-in. And obviously, with the Valve ranking system being as it is now, if you attend an event and do bad, that's worse than not attending.
Yes.
Right. That's how that works.
Yep.
So anyway, obviously the Mongols were like, we're putting our players' health first. They put out some blanket bullshit statement. It's like, yeah, your player broke their arm. It's fine. And Jake Lucky used that and went, we should really normalize CS teams not needing to attend every single event. Shout out to the Mongols for putting player health first. It's like, no, bro. They're putting their rankings first, not their player health. Also, this isn't burnout or mental health or depression. He was fucking around and broke his arm, right? And then, on top of all of that, bro, have you seen what's happening in 2025? No one's attending every event. It's actually physically impossible. So guess what? It is normalized. His opinion fails on every single fucking level as an authority on this. And I'm just like, why? Why is CS people sharing this?
I really wish...
You know everything he's saying is bollocks.
I really wish Jake Lucky would discuss the mental health of LGBTQ people in Saudi Arabia. I think he should address some of these topics. He's very concerned about burnout and all of these other things. What about the indentured servitude workforce that's going to build all of those World Cup stadiums?
Hey, listen. By the way, it's going to get pretty spicy if there's an esports stadium built, a specific one for esports, innit? going to make a lot of people, because I'm still waiting to see what happens with this Kadia thing. I mean, again, I know we're all over the place in this episode.
No,
fuck it,
sure.
but buy the ticket, take the ride. Fuck you all if you don't like it, right? So, this Kadia thing, this Kadia agreement that these Esports World Club program recipients have agreed to. And by the way, that's expanding to 40 teams now. That's going to expand in 2025. So what you agree to, if you want to get these stipends to run these teams, is that eventually you are going to have to spend some time in Kadia. The team's going to have to be there for a period of time using elite level training facilities, but also have access to the public to do certain engagements. But on top of that, you got to have an office in Kadia that you have operationally, and you've got to employ, I believe it was 3 Saudi Arabian residents in executive positions within your company. Well, I hate to break it to everyone, these teams aren't going to, not 40 teams are going to do that, right?
I mean, there aren't going to be 40 qualified candidates in a country as small as Saudi Arabia because they don't have any esports experience. Anybody.
So,
there.
but that if you want the delicious extras, that's what people are agreeing to. Again, this reporting was on the Esports Advocate, I believe. James Fudge did this story. So, look, I'm very intrigued to see where that's going, because some people are going to accept it and accept everything that comes with that, and then other people aren't. So that's something to keep an eye on in 2025. Funnily enough, just while we're also talking about this, did you, as an interesting media story, did you see what happened to the Esports Insider, ESI?
Yeah. Oh, what happened?
Right, so I'll give you the cliffs because it's pretty long. But what I'll do is I'll also, in our little secret group chat, and then you can decide which part you want to show in the broadcast, if any. Sam Cook, you remember Sam Cook, obviously. He was I believe, was the co-founder of Esports Insider ESI. He's certainly been there a long time. I think he's been there a decade or whatever. And he's leaving. And he's leaving to start something new. And I was like, well, okay, what's that going to be? Because obviously Esports Insider have come under a lot of flack because they are one of the media outlets that have been paid to go and do these interviews with, Prince Faisal and all these other things. I think they had a sponsorship from Kadia to promote that on their website. And anyway, what's happened is Esports Insider got bought, apparently. They got bought by a company. I think it's Clickout Media. It might be. And anyway, I think this is all breaking. So it's Clickout Media or Phoenixy, or it might be that they might be the same company. But anyway, they got, apparently behind the scenes, people are telling me they got bought by that. And what this company does is they do search engine optimization, like just slop. And they've been publicly criticized for this all across the internet. And anyway, so he's leaving after that's been kind of supposedly a deal done behind the scenes. And it makes me really fear for the future of ESI as a publication, because no sooner had I been told that had happened, look at this article. By a journalist I've never heard of, someone who has no background in esports, suddenly writing about the best esports betting sites in the US for 2025. Click on all of this. Is what Esports Insider are publishing now.
Yeah.
So, as I said, it's dark. It's cold in these streets for esports media, which is another reason why what we're trying to do is we're trying to fucking be this independent bastion of having a platform where people can talk about these topics. And yeah, sometimes we're going to be grandstanding. Sometimes it's not going to be very interesting. Sometimes we might even miss the mark, but at least we are able and free to talk about those things at a time when, as I said, Saudi are literally buying up publications. Webedia, who sold the Esports World Cup brand to EWC solely so there wouldn't be an ESWC-EWC conflict in the future. Not because they care about the prestige of the history of that particular brand, which is checkered at best. They're doomed, apparently. That's a portfolio of like 100 websites all across Europe. maybe more. You know, it's like it's dark times for media, and unless you're able to move across and do stuff independently, then there really isn't. You know, you are going to have to go do a Jacob Wolf and go and do a real job in a complete other industry.
I think in LFN's instance, you know, it's hard, as you point out, Richard, to get yourself to the point where it is sustainable, but like that's what we've been spending the last several years doing. So we're over the worst of it now, right? And I think like you just have to have the stomach to just do it. You know?
Oh yeah.
And but like most people, when presented with the option for, I mean, startups are just fucking hard, and you're going to like just not get money for a while in a lot of startups. And especially if you want to maintain control over the company, you know, and, you know, in our case, we didn't take investment, so we didn't have to sell any ownership of the company. You know, that's a good thing now, but it did make it suck for a while, like suck a lot. And so I think most people just don't want their lives to suck for that long in order to do what needs to be done. Or they can't. Yeah. You know, they're not in a financial position where that's an option.
Which is another reason why the Esports Advocate is so remarkable. You know, it's all James
for James, for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's one thing I think people don't actually seem to realize about the stakes that we're talking about. Whereas Monty pointed out, we turned down the millions of dollars that it turned out would have been from the Saudis, but we thought was just from some ex-Faceit people. For anyone else, the option there isn't, do you take the money or do you run it? It's just, you just not do the project. You'd have to just shut the doors tomorrow pretty much. If we didn't take that money, because if you don't know, all three of us in this chat make our actual living not from this company. We have to do essentially a real job. All the people out there tell you can't make it. We have to do a real esports job and then on the side to do this as like a hobbyist/startup thing and hope that one day, as well as accomplishing our goals with media, it pays us an actual salary, etc. Yeah. Like, it's not like we're saying you can just do what we're doing. Our model doesn't even work for us. We're making it work by earning elsewhere and giving our efforts to this. Yeah. That's why people don't seem to appreciate that angle. It's not like we have some cynical thing where this made us money. We actually did lose a lot from this.
Right. I mean,
it was the right thing to do. Yeah.
In terms of me, like I took consulting, like part-time consulting gigs. You know, I was streaming.
Housemates and moved to another country.
I sold my house and moved to Korea. Yeah.
That's not a minor thing. Now, look, I will say, Monty, you were sort of ahead of that thing of where you lived, you know, in the city of LA with that house. That might be the right time to sell the house. Okay.
Okay. Some say the timing incredibly suspicious.
Right. Okay.
Look, I know shit went wrong in LA, but let's just put it this way. Where my house was, shit would have to go insane, like 20 times more wrong than this went for that house to burn
20 times the level of Democrat involvement. I'm kidding.
I mean, it's just
to be talking LEC format explainer levels of scale of magnitude, right, Monty?
That's right. Yeah, 27x the average fire.
There you go.
Just because it was in mid city, so it's like, but my house, I sold it, but it was like between downtown and Santa Monica on the 10, which means it's in an island of concrete so large that it would have to be like the fire
Monty,
to end all fires.
It's the question that I'm going to ask. Like, I'm just doing it with a shit-eating grin rhetorically, but I actually also mean it for real. I think you should actually address this. Monty, the ultimate excuse to take the Saudi money is you have young children. That is the ultimate excuse. Everyone normally forgives you if you say that excuse. Everyone goes, well,
you see, here's the thing.
Did you do it?
Some people are like, I have a family, so I must take the evil money. To me, that's the opposite reason, because you're like, I have a family. I probably shouldn't use this as an example to my children of what you should or shouldn't do. And it's like, I will say that with confidence. So the reason why this was less of a risk than other things that could be done is because we never had a product problem. Like day one, we were basically doing 1 million podcast downloads a month. We did not have an issue with the product. What the problem was is that we had to wait for the advertising to catch up, right? But the podcast industry is a very known quantity, and so we knew it would catch up eventually. So it did make it, to be fair, less risky, right? Because it's like, we know what podcast ads are worth. We have X number of slots on the podcast. If we fill 50% of their slots, this should be the revenue that we're making. And that number is a very good number, right? And now we're getting to that point. Like this year, like I said, this is like the big year for us, I think, where we really break out. But you know, it just took that time because you have to build the relationships with the agencies and the advertisers, and they have to know who you are. So that's why when we started the Sack Down, for example, we were able to get advertisers on that very quickly, because when we went and we said, hey, we've got this great new show, our advertisers and our agencies were like, oh, we know LFN. They do great. Put stuff on there immediately, right? So we're playing a different game than we were 2 years ago when we went out and everybody, we were like, look at our big podcast. And they're like, what the fuck is this? Who are you? That doesn't happen anymore, right? So it really was a matter of getting to this point. But because it wasn't, you know, to your point about the Substack, the problem with people who started these Substacks is that they had a product problem, in that they didn't have readers on the Substack, right? It wasn't like, here's a bunch of readers that already exist. All I have to do is flip the switch that says people can subscribe to me, and then there's the money. We had the viewership. That wasn't a problem. We had built that over 10 years of Summoning Insight and other shows on the channel. That wasn't going to be the issue. So I think that's the big difference, is that it's a lot scarier if you're somebody who doesn't have that audience, because it is doubly daunting to try and build that audience while trying to monetize that audience simultaneously. We only had that one problem. We only had the monetization problem. And that it wasn't like we were in some sort of unknown universe of like, oh, there aren't advertisers for this thing. It's like there's a gazillion advertisers for this thing. So it didn't feel like a huge gamble. It was annoying, but it has been, you know, it has been annoying, but it's not like, oh, this company sucks, or, you know, even this company has no value, because at the end of the day, the product was good enough that the company obviously had value. So even if we were to, let's just say we're like, shit, everything's fucked up and we have to sell this thing tomorrow, it still has a lot of value to somebody, a bigger podcast company, most likely. We just want to, we don't want to do that. And we, you know, maybe eventually we sell to a bigger podcast. Maybe Spotify buys us someday, like The Ringer did. I don't know, but I would like the company to be bigger and worth more so that we all make more money.
And the joke is, in that sense, you are actually on the same page as Riot, because they just want to have more autonomy, and that's one thing we obviously value. So that the one sense, that is one value we do.
But the difference is, Thorin, is that if we were Riot, we would have sold all of our company to Tencent already. And not gotten as big as we possibly could have.
If we were going to viewbot, I would have just viewbotted only my shows. So it looks to Monty like I'm the true alpha who has all the viewership. He's just some guy following along with me. He's just my Ed Norton or whatever that guy. What was that fucking guy? Ed McMahon. There you go. I've just realised I've done an even worse version of By the Numbers, because that's like a reference from the 60s or something. Like, okay, fair enough.
We gotta get you. We gotta bring you up. We gotta, please. I'm begging you, just at least start at the turn of the century, Duncan. Please.
All right. Well,
but yeah. Look, so that's pretty much that. I mean, look, I'm not trying to toot our own horn or anything like that, but it's, you know, it's just a pretty desolate place if you want to like actually get any meaty critique about things that are going on in esports, particularly from a business and development perspective. There's just not really a lot of that out there. I mean, you know, the Esports Advocate pretty much stands alone as a publication, particularly now. And then obviously you've got the podcasting set, but you know, we're actively suppressed on a number of, you know, social media platforms. You've got Elon Musk, Mr. Free Speech. He suppresses Substack links on his on a platform. You know, you don't get a lot of reach. In fact, like, for context, I can tell you this because I'm doing my Gonzo Awards, which are the alternative awards for everything that's bad about esports every year. Although I must say, kind of superfluous this year, because nobody was sucking their dick at the end of 2024. Usually the reason you do it is everyone's like patting themselves on the back going, yeah, look at all these cool things I did, look at all the things I achieved. Esports is in the best place it's ever been. Can't wait, let's get this bread in 2025. No one was saying that at the end. There was none of it. I didn't see a single post where I was like,
by the way, Richard, I do appreciate that you know, our fortunes are not the same as esports fortune, where I'm like, Yeah, 2025 looking really good for us. Everybody else is like, this shit fucking sucks.
Yeah, I know. So it kind of feels like, feels
good,
like a
man.
needlessly cruel addition to do the Gonzo Awards this year. But anyway, but I was doing them. So here's context, right? I obviously have like, I don't know, like 120,000 followers or whatever it is on Twitter. It might be more. I don't know. Who gives a fuck, right? But so when I tweet out a Substack link, I would expect reasonable amount of my followers would see that, engage with that, share that. Maybe their followers would, that's how it works. That's what the point of it. I got a total of, out of the thousands of people that engaged with the article, 2% came from Twitter. And for context, it got submitted to Reddit where it was downvoted, didn't make it to the front page, nowhere near, not even the third page of the CSGO subreddit. That also contributed 2%. That's how much they suppress Twitter if you post Substack links. Meanwhile, if I was to like live stream my gameplay footage on there, it would be boosted by Twitter's own algorithm, and I would supposedly get 20,000 people watching me live. None of which is true. So it's like just a really weird space.
That's because the Twitter view thing counts every view in total. So it's not concurrent. View, It's literally just a total. It's a running total of everyone who has clicked it, even for 1 second.
Which we hilariously saw with the Esports World Cup again. Look at this.
Makes it easy to viewbot those numbers too, because they have to access it for like a fraction of a second before clicking out. They don't even have to sit there and watch it.
Yeah. So I mean, look, it's just like you said. It's not everyone's going to be able to do kind of what we're doing. I'd like to see more people do it. I could think of a number of people I think could like go independent and create their own kind of podcasts and create their own websites and Substacks and content and be in a place to be critical of a lot of things that are going on here. We're already seeing people, by the way, break away from the orthodoxy of the Esports Awards and create their own awards ceremonies and try and keep them, insulated from there. And the winner is Falcons, presented by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. All rise, all rise. It's like, we have to move away from all of that, because that just needs to be its own hermetically sealed bullshit. That needs to be adjacent. That needs to be esports adjacent. People need to start asking the question, which esports are you into? The Saudi esports or the real esports? It needs to be like that. We just need to get away from it, like professional and amateur, however you want to kind of divide it, and that we want to be free from that bubble, so we can look into that bubble and essentially laugh and ridicule what is going on in that bubble, even if in some cases it is our friends and colleagues that are just temporarily in that bubble. It has to be that way. It's not done maliciously, but it is done to highlight some key aspects to the business that have changed and are changing, and ultimately, on a long enough timeline, they're going to change back. Saudi is not in esports forever, by the way, guys, and I hope I'm still around to remind a few people that made that excursion over to there when they come back and go, listen, guys, let me explain. Like the cheating husband. Let me explain what I was doing when I was bunked up with that woman that's now left me for years, neglecting my own children. Let me explain. There was context to that. I didn't know what I was doing.
But
I was
Richard,
having my own midlife crisis.
Let me explain how truly I had the moral high ground the entire time, just like I did before. Well,
I expect that of you, obviously, Monty.
By the way,
that was me being that, Richard. Stop it.
Even though this is slightly different, my favorite was there was someone on one of those like third-party CS sites. I don't think it was the BO3 one, but it was one of those like you vaguely remember them, but they're not like a massive site. There was someone who very early in the ESL being sold shit did do a think piece where the premise of the think piece was, but since esports loses money, isn't it a good thing that the evil Saudis are buying it? And I just thought, holy fuck that you've even sat down and wrapped yourself up like a pretzel over that fucking one to try and find a way that it's good. Like, what I'll never understand about that is, why wouldn't that logic apply to everyone, mate? By your logic, you should want like actual like gun runners from North Africa to be involved, drug cartels. Essentially, your logic is, esports is such a bad industry, you lose money. We should just get every evil person to lose their money in esports. Like,
listen,
it's the craziest actual thing I've
ever
heard
of.
Funding.
Maybe drug cartels would be a step back in the right direction.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Maybe.
Feels more honest in a way.
Yeah, right. They're killing you to, stop them being arrested. They're murdering you to cause fear among certain, population groups where they operate. They're not doing it because you're gay.
It's true. They're equal opportunity killers.
Escobar 2025, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Escobar Invitational. It's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. But anyway, all of which to say, 2024. I had a lot of fun doing the Last Free Nation stuff, and obviously we'll continue to do it to the best of my ability in 2025. Not intending on going anywhere. Extending the Four Horsemen. Me and Monty keep flirting with the idea of a Deep Space Nine podcast, which I don't even know how that would work, or if anyone would watch it. Probably wouldn't, right? But
I think they would. There's a bunch of boomer nerds like us who love that.
That's
show.
what we need. That's what's really going to put Last Free Nation over the top. Tapping in to the Deep Space Nine market. Once we do that,
2025.
Yeah, in 2025. Yeah, most of the cast is dead, but listen. So.
Rip. Yeah. So sad.
I know. That is a sad one.
But anyway, yes, thanks to all our talent. Just wanted to give you guys, because I know people are wondering about, the state of things. And we're pretty transparent about it, guys. Like, we try and be honest with you. Your support is extremely important. We want to keep growing. If you guys have concepts or shows you want to hear from us, send them our way. We're definitely open to that. I think where we succeed the best is when we're curating stuff for you guys, if that makes sense, because there's so much media, so much esports. I think you guys like it when we can kind of direct your focus to the good stuff. I think that's where we've been really successful as a company. Obviously, you guys love Foreplay, the movie show that we do, the three of us do together. Nerd Legion similarly.
Must be coming up on like 60 episodes or something for that.
We've recorded 53. There have been, I believe there have been 49 or 50 that have been released. So yeah.
Yeah, obviously we had that fucked up thing with the Cure episode where it
yes. By the way, we have another one of those that hasn't been flagged, so I think we're kind of safe to release that one now because we've waited for months.
Well,
the annoying thing, I will say, the annoying thing about some of these like smaller distributors is because, look, Warner Brothers, man, they've got 1 million employees, and it's like they will hit you immediately. So it's like, oh, okay, before we release it, it's like it gets hit within a day when it's just sitting there unlisted. And we're like, okay, so we got to change this right away. The problem with Cure is it's like some obscure distributor. And because they probably have one guy that like checks the inbox once a month, it's like it's out for a month, and then he decides to check it, and he's like, nah, this isn't good. And you're like, fuck, man, it's been sitting there forever. Like, come on. So, and that's why we shouldn't do indie movies is the answer.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely been fucking a lot. Like, I was like counting them up, and I was like, fucking hell, we've done like so many episodes of this, actually.
I mean, honestly, the most impressive thing, Richard, is we're starting to get to like 20,000 downloads an episode, which for some fucking esports boomers doing a movie show is pretty epic.
Hey, listen.
We don't come from that world.
Listen, fucking Duncan put us over the top with that outrageous Jurassic Park episode. So. That's what the most hostile discussion of a beloved child's movie.
You know what really was the 500 Days of Summer, which, by the way, continues to be it accumulates. It's interesting to look at which of our episodes like kind of just accumulate views over a long time span. Best. Another surprising one was LA Confidential. Has been like, it's been like one of the slow burners for sure. But like, if I look right now at our analytics and I look at some of the ones that are kind of older episodes that are doing the best, LA Confidential, 500 Days of Summer, Hard 8, Jurassic Park, and the Thomas Crown Affair. Weirdly, that one gets a lot too.
Yeah, that's because people are Googling Pierce Brosnan's wooden ass, and it's like... It's like the first thing that comes up is that episode.
But LA Confidential is like pretty solidly like always our oldest episode that's being watched the most. But 500 Days of Summer is way up there as well. There's a good. I feel like the 500 Days of Summer title to that episode is particularly good, which is.
Yes,
I think it's like psychological poison in movie form. It's just such a good title.
which it is.
It draws people in. Also, shout out to our thumbnail artist for fucking the thumbnails for 4Play are always so good. It looks like we're part of the movie poster.
An obvious thing we should do down the line to tie all things together is I hope one day we can make a dope T-shirt with someone like Into the AM where it's some of that art, because mate, you could make an amazing like montage T-shirt of like some of the best ones of those, because the way they make us look like the iconic things from the movies is fucking baller. That looks really sick, I think.
Yep. Well, spoiler, we may be having some posters available as merchandise soon for that.
I love that. and that sets up nicely for the big project of 2025, which is a shot-for-shot remake of Heat, starring me and Thorin in the lead roles. So.
Who's Wayne Grow in our shot-for-shot remake of Heat?
I'll invite Jake Lucky for that if you want.
There you go. There you go.
Jake Lucky. He hasn't got the charisma to be Wayne Grow.
All right. On that note, guys, we'll end this episode. Keep in mind, we will be doing these more frequently. We're trying to aim for every other week with this show, and we are going to get another one, State of LOL, coming up with a good guest for you in the next couple of weeks. So we will see you then. And as usual, esports delenda est.
Robo wants an Oreo.